Just before midnight, here in the small town of Hewitt, Texas, on the outskirts of Waco, beloved minister Matt Baker comes home to find his wife unresponsive in their bedroom. Their two young daughters asleep in their beds. Matt calls 911.
Are you in there with her right now? Is she conscious?
No,
she's not breathing. Did you see what happened to her?
No, I do not know.
The ambulance is on the way, okay? Are you right beside her right now?
Yes.
Matt had been beside his wife Carrie since they met at a Baptist summer camp and fell in love.
I was the assistant director and she was one of the camp counselors. And from day one, we kind of hit it off.
Carrie fell head over heels. She told the family that she'd met a good Christian boy and she'd fallen in love.
Her faith was the core of who she was. And so it was very important to her that she found someone whose faith was aligned with hers.
Matt grew up in Kerrville. He too came from a very religious family.
Carrie, she was always the bubbly little blonde and just loved life. People were drawn to Carrie.
She was so funny. And when Carrie laughed, she laughed with her whole body. Everyone in the room just could feel her because she was just so free-spirited.
I don't think there was ever a question Carrie was right or not right for me. It was we moved fast. We met in May and married in August.
We tried to talk Carrie into waiting a little longer, and she really did not want to. Carrie was looking for a husband with morals and values that were similar to what she had, and Matt, she believed, had those.
That you may fear the Lord your God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you.
She was marrying a Baptist minister. How good is that? You couldn't pick a better guy than Matt Baker.
Can you say Merry Christmas? No, here, take your pacifier out. Say Christmas. Can you give a kiss?
The kids came quickly.
Oh.
They looked like this perfect young couple with this beautiful baby.
Carrie wanted children. She always had, and she was a wonderful mother.
She's still so pink.
And then Cassidy came. It looked to the outside world like everything was just coming together for the Bakers.
If you know our children or not, this is my wife, Carrie, and it's special for me to do this because they are my children, they're our children.
Cassidy, hi.
But it was just after Cassidy's first birthday when the family was dealt some heartbreaking news about her.
And it turned out that she had a brain tumor. Carrie was devastated, absolutely devastated.
We went to Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth.
It was a scary time, and she struggled in pediatric ICU for 60 days. They started chemotherapy on her.
They didn't know if she would make it through, but she did.
We get to bring her home. That was one of the happiest days.
She needed a lot of care when she came home, but she was expected to recover.
The Academy Awards were playing that night, and I remember staying up watching that. I went in and checked on Cassidy, and she was fine. I gave her a kiss and said a prayer, checked on their older sister, kissed her, said a prayer, and went to bed.
A little while later, he got back up and went and checked on her a second time. This time he started screaming. Carrie jumped up, ran into the room, found Cassidy, and she wasn't breathing at all.
I yell at my wife as I'm taking her out of the bed, and I put her on the floor and I begin CPR. She calls 911.
They brought Cassidy to the hospital, but they weren't able to save her. Cassidy died.
I know we dealt with it differently. We would have discussions about it and pray about it. And it was a struggle.
Carrie bled grief after Cassidy died.
And she was having a difficult time sleeping.
Carrie had been taking over-the-counter sleep aid since Cassidy died.
She could not calm down at night without sleeping pills.
She started writing journals, and she just poured out incredible sorrow. She thought she saw Cassidy wherever she went.
It was horrible. What helped Carrie, in addition to her faith and her family, was she saw a grief counselor for a year. She talked and talked things through.
The death of a child always puts a terrible strain on a marriage. Carrie really fought to keep that marriage together. She loved Matt. She wanted it to work out.
I just told Carrie that men and women often grieve in different ways.
In time, the Bakers and their daughter tried to move ahead with their lives.
It was a year and a half after Cassidy's death. Carrie found out that she was pregnant. Carrie said that the baby was coming by the grace of God.
There was definitely a fear in my wife that I had not seen before. A fear of what if. I lost one, what if we lose another one? I can't handle that.
She loved her girls, and she was so strong for them. Cassidy's life was cut short, but she had them.
The four of them looked like this perfect little family. You would think, oh, look, they just have it all.
EMS, what's your emergency?
Almost exactly 7 years after the death of her daughter Cassidy, Carrie is now seemingly lifeless on their bedroom floor while her husband works to save her.
Do compressions first, okay? Just keep doing compression.
Waco is a great city. It's very religious. You can't walk a block without seeing a church.
It's small enough that most people are just a degree or two away from knowing everybody else.
Hewitt, Texas is a suburb of Waco. Back then, maybe 12,000 people. They have their own city, government, police.
And when Carrie and Matt moved in, they quickly became part of the community.
But in early April 2006, right here in the heart of the Bible Belt, a chaotic scene is unfolding inside this house. Local pastor Matt Baker has arrived home to find his wife Carrie unresponsive in their bedroom.
And what's the problem? Tell me exactly what happened.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold.
Is she conscious?
No, she's
not. Breathing?
No, she's not breathing at all, no pulse or anything.
I put my head to her chest and didn't see or feel her chest rising, no air coming out, felt for pulse, nothing.
Okay, listen carefully. I need you to get her laying flat on her back on the ground and remove any pillows, okay?
Okay, put her on the floor.
Correct.
Put her on the bed now. Put her on.
All right, she needs to be on the floor, yes, sir.
Okay.
The 911 operator tells Matt to do CPR, to put Carrie on the floor and start CPR.
Do that and tell me when you're done.
Okay, hold on. Hey, hold on. Oh, my. Okay, hold on.
I did not want the EMTs to come in and see her naked. And so I put her clothes on her, for her. And as I'm taking her off the bed, fluid comes out of her mouth onto the floor, and it smells of alcohol.
You're going to push down firmly 2 inches with only your lower hand touching her chest. You're going to do it fast and hard 400 times.
400?
400 times is the latest we've been instructed to do, okay?
400.
Twice per second.
Rest it off?
After the 400. You're going
400
to, correct. It's going to be about twice per second. It'll take you about 3.5 minutes to do it, okay? So start right now. I'll tell you when to stop. All right.
While on the phone, Matt asks the 911 operator to call Carrie's parents because he says his daughters are also in the house.
I need to get a hold of her parents. They live in town, and I want them to come over and be with the kids.
Get somebody else started on this, okay?
Thank you.
We received a phone call from the 911 operator telling us that we needed to get over to my daughter's house, that there had been an accident. We needed to get over there immediately.
Oh, she's got foam or something coming out of her nose. Okay, someone's at the front door. I gotta go.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
My name is Michael Irvin. I was a patrol officer with the city of Hewitt, and at that time I had only had about 6 months of actual law enforcement experience. I was the first officer to respond to the house. There was actually an EMT that met me in the front yard. Matt Baker actually met us outside and then walked us in, and he took us straight into the bedroom where his wife was at.
The EMTs go in and they find Carrie on the floor. She's wearing a t-shirt and a pair of underpants.
And they come in and I step away and let them start working.
There was a glass there that was actually still cold, if I remember correctly, which led into his account of what happened that night.
It'd been a typical Friday night that Matt says started with him and Carrie sharing a drink before heading to the local Y.
And we had a wine cooler that I'd purchased, and so she drank one, I drank one. We take our oldest daughter to swim practice that night. On the way, my wife started saying her stomach was hurting her. She just felt nauseated, wasn't feeling very good.
After the family returns home, Matt says Carrie still wasn't feeling well, and after taking a bath, she heads to bed while he starts the bedtime rituals with her daughters.
It's a Friday night, so they could stay up later. They could stay up till 10 o'clock watching TV. Came back, laid down with my wife. She's still in bed, half asleep, and she wants another drink. She has a drink, I have one too. She goes to sleep, wakes up at about 11 o'clock, and asks me to go get a movie. And I was like, it's 11 o'clock. She goes, well, go get this movie for me and gas up, because we have a busy day tomorrow.
He left to go get a movie. While he was gone, he came back and he discovered that he couldn't get back in.
Walk to the bedroom door and it's closed. And I try the knob and it's locked. And I knock on it and call her name, Carrie, Carrie, and there's no response.
Matt says he finds a small screwdriver to try to open the door.
So I pop the lock and open the door and find her in bed. And it was very eerily similar to walking in the room when I found Cassidy.
As EMTs in the Baker residence work on Carrie, police take note of those wine coolers on the bedside table and something else.
There was this bottle of Unisom that it was almost empty.
She had been taking sleeping pills to go to sleep since Cassidy passed away and started taking more and more of them. And we had discussions that you've got to stop doing this. This is too many. This can be dangerous.
We ran out of the car, and as I started running up to the front of the house, an EMT person stood in front of me and grabbed me and told me that my daughter was dead.
I just kept saying, there's no way.
There was a piece of paper on the end table, and something didn't set right. For me, it all pointed back to that note.
A frenzied scene has been unfolding in the middle of the night at the Baker's home. Matt Baker's wife is dead, and there's a note.
On the bedside table, there's a suicide note.
That was the first time that the word suicide entered my mind. I had no idea at that moment what had happened.
In the note, there was reference to Cassidy. Matt explained to me that Cassidy was their daughter. And it's a very difficult time for Carrie because of the anniversary of Cassidy passing away. The first person I remember showing up after me, I explained all the things that Matt had showed me, and I took a step back.
In Texas, in small counties where they don't have medical examiners, the justices of the peace decide what happens when there's an unexplained or a sudden death.
I do remember that phone call. It was Judge Martin.
They told him they had a suicide note and they had alcohol and that they had pills. And Billy Martin did not order an autopsy.
It was classified as a suicide based on the preliminary investigation and what they saw at the scene.
Police involvement at that point is done.
Carrie Baker's family and her church community are shocked by her suicide.
I hurt for her. I hurt that someone hurt enough that they made that choice.
We're just trying to put one foot in front of the other and get through this. This is...
Less than 1 week after Carrie's funeral, Pastor Matt Baker is back at the pulpit here at Crossroads Baptist delivering the Easter sermon. He tells his congregation that just like Jesus, Carrie has risen up to heaven.
There was always the desire in her to be with a daughter that was in heaven now. And she did voice that several times, that Cassidy needed her, she needed Cassidy.
This was my wife's Bible that she carried for years.
Matt had given her a Bible years earlier, and she started writing her feelings in the margins.
She says, I want to go with Cassidy. She could never let go of Cassidy. It was such a strong hold on her.
The week Carrie died, she had a session with her grief counselor and also saw a doctor who prescribed her medication.
The next day she ripped up the prescription. She wouldn't fill it.
After finding out Carrie died, I had talked to my sister Kay. I just kept saying there's no way.
Carrie would never take her own life.
And then that's when she told me about a visit she got from Joanne.
Joanne Bristol is Carrie's grief counselor and also friends with Carrie's aunt, Kay Bailey.
She had had a session with Carrie earlier that week. She had shared with me what Carrie had shared with her, that Carrie found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase.
Joanne Bristol also shared that detail and others with police in the days following Carrie's death.
My sister Kay and I, we all started talking, not around Linda. We all were sitting there going, what are we going to do? Because we knew so much about Matt.
We worked at a church camp together. Matt, I believe, had been written up at that particular camp for harassing girls that I went to school with.
There was also an alleged incident from his college days involving a fellow student.
I was afraid of him. I was angry with him. He took away virtually my young adulthood.
Laura Wilson filed a complaint against Matt, saying he sexually assaulted her.
We were both student trainers for the athletic department. He was a sophomore trainer and I was a freshman trainer.
She was cleaning the bathrooms. Matt came in and offered to help.
He came up behind me and he pinned my arms behind my back and started trying to kiss me. I kept telling him to stop. He came up from behind me, picked me up, sat me on his lap, and he began running his hand between my legs. I was struggling to get away. He didn't stop with the kiss. He didn't stop with the touching until he was ready to stop. Now I'm left with myself, violated, in shock, not knowing what to do.
All I can tell you is when she left the facility, was in tears, but nothing that I did.
After the assault happened, his words to me were, "I never meant to hurt you."
At the time, Laura told a college staffer about the alleged assault. Matt was not disciplined.
I dropped out, dealt with recurring nightmares, dealt with trust issues in relationships. It derailed my life for many, many years. I became a different person.
She eventually filed a report with police years later. They began looking into the allegations, but stopped once they realized the statute of limitations had passed. Matt Baker denies assaulting Laura or harassing any female campers.
Things have been said that can be misconstrued, misinterpreted, but I can say this, I never accosted anybody.
Throughout Matt and Carrie's marriage, rumors of alleged inappropriate sexual behavior would continue to follow the preacher, but his wife stood by him.
She loved Matt. When Carrie heard allegations that Matt had been inappropriate with young women, she was his staunchest defender. She told one young woman, when you marry a Baptist preacher, women are going to come forward and make false allegations, and you have to protect them.
Carrie believed him, and we believed Carrie. She was telling us the truth, as she knew it.
I think there's a presumption with a man of God that they have a certain character and a certain ethical base, and we believe that.
Linda's sisters had hoped that by talking to her about the various past allegations against Matt, she might start to see him in a different light. But she didn't. She still had faith in her son-in-law.
My sisters came over, and I told them, let's just grieve and let this go.
But the family wouldn't let it go.
It started with the cell phone records.
And Linda soon makes a startling discovery.
Something wasn't right.
Over the years, since her daughter Cassidy's death, Carrie Baker was in and out of counseling, dealing with her grief, especially around the time of year when Cassidy died.
Anytime you got close to the anniversary of the death of Cassidy or her birthday or holidays, there was definitely a deep sadness.
But there was more going on that year. There was the fact that she was uncertain about her relationship with Matt. She sensed that something was very wrong. After Carrie's death, Linda's sisters sat down with Linda and said, we don't believe that Carrie committed suicide.
While Linda may have still been processing her daughter's loss, her family's emotions had quickly turned to suspicion.
I remember Nancy saying, Linda, have you ever considered that perhaps Carrie didn't take her life? I remember stammering and saying, oh, what are you talking about? Murder?
We don't think Carrie killed herself. We know she didn't.
The family decides to tell Linda what they say they learned from Carrie's therapist.
Carrie had shared with her that she'd found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase, and she was afraid that Matt might possibly try to kill her.
She said, I think Matt's trying to kill me. And then she started laughing and she said, oh no, Matt would never do that.
But at the same time, I thought, this would make more sense because I knew that Carrie would never take her own life.
I think if truly Carrie went and said that and was fearful for her life, the counselor should have done more and didn't. Looking back, I think it was a scream. At the first scream in a series of screams that took place that week of, I'm hurting more than you think I am.
Murder, I mean, that's just not something that I could wrap my head around. I needed time to think, to process. This was too difficult for me to be able to discuss.
But then shortly after Carrie's death, Linda says she began to notice Matt was keeping her granddaughters away from her. No more babysitting, no more invitations to school events.
At that point, she started to feel a little different. What was going on here and why was this happening?
Linda remembers Matt and Carrie's cell phones were part of her family plan, so she decides to have a look at the phone bill.
The first really odd thing she noticed was that Matt had continued to call Carrie's cell phone weeks after Carrie had died. It made no sense at all, and then it all started to click. Matt's giving Carrie's phone to someone.
And I think you said calling all angels, but we all went over to your house. You said, we need to get together and talk.
At that point, Linda started to think that maybe her sisters were right, and maybe they really did need to look into this.
It started with the cell phone.
And I immediately figured out it was Vanessa Bowles.
Vanessa Bowles was the daughter of the music minister at Crossroads Church, where Matt was the preacher.
The relationship really started between my wife and her. They became friends.
Vanessa had a little girl that reminded Carrie of the baby she had lost.
There were only 3 young families in the church that had small children, so we naturally just kind of congregated together because we had similar interests. We were friends.
Vanessa would later describe in a recorded interview how she says the friendship evolved.
So I just got divorced, and it was nice to have someone, to talk to,
Right.
Who was in a pastoral position.
And she gives her explanation of why she has Carrie's phone.
We were starting to talk and become friends. Then I said, don't call my cell because my mom pays for my meds and I don't want to run over during the day. I've done that many times before. And he was like, well, I still have Carrie's phone, so I can give that to you.
Maybe Matt was simply seeking comfort in the friendship of a fellow churchgoer. But for Linda, those phone bills had set off alarm bells.
Linda went to the Hewitt Police Department. She showed them the phone bills, but they weren't interested. This was a done case. It was over as far as they were concerned.
That's when Linda said, I need my angels over here.
I would email them. I would go, good morning, angels.
She would always tell us, you need to do this. And
here's your assignment for today.
We're investigating.
We did. It was nonstop all the time.
The assignments Linda gave out involved going through the garbage.
And Charlie was doing some digging right alongside her angels as well. She researched whether overdosing on a sleep aid could have really killed Carrie. And she questioned Matt about those alleged crushed pills.
I talked to Matt about the crushed pills.
My wife said she found him in my briefcase when she was looking for a pen. She said, well, did a kid where you work put him in your bag?
Matt claims that, unknown to him, some kids at work may have been spitting out pills into his briefcase.
But that seemed odd because the pills didn't look like they'd been spit out.
What he said couldn't have happened.
And so Kay called Judge Billy Martin to find out why he had ruled Carrie's death a suicide.
I talked to him about the suicide note, and he mentioned it being signed, and I said it was not. And he goes, well, you need to talk to the police. I said, we've already done this, and we just want somebody to investigate it more.
And it was about that time where Matt's story no longer made sense. There were inconsistencies, outright lies, and we needed more answers.
So following the family's urging, police bring Pastor Matt Baker in for questioning.
Well, I just want to sit and talk to me.
Questions needed to be asked, and questions needed to be answered.
"31-year-old Carrie Baker has been found dead in her home. It was deemed a suicide by police, but her family began investigating on their own, and they urged police to question her husband, preacher Matt Baker.
I just want to sit and talk to him, I just want to talk about what happened that night.
Absolutely.
That way we can clear all this up, because I'm sure you know what I'm getting at, okay, as far as, Linda, you know what I'm saying?
It was a very odd week. But not behavior that would have
raise red flags.
Right.
If that makes sense. You know, it was one of those deals that I knew she was depressed.
The conversation continues, with Matt sharing his own view on what he believes might have happened.
I left about 11 or so. I wasn't gone maybe 40 minutes.
You left the house and went down to the gas station?
I wasn't even gone long at all.
Okay.
And so, and that was the strange thing about it is I question where she would have taken the medicine. Personally, this is my opinion. I don't think the medicine is what killed her. I think she threw up into her mouth, but was knocked out enough and choked on it. So no, I don't know if that's just me trying to put stuff together to make it, you know, I don't know.
Okay. Like I said, that's all I just wanted to sit and holler at you about. One last thing, you know, to kind of quell everything. If I asked you to take a polygraph test, would you be willing to do so?
Okay.
Matt eventually passes a polygraph arranged by his attorney. Upset that police continue to consider Carrie's death a suicide, Linda pulls together a team of her own.
Linda ended up making an appointment to talk to a former federal prosecutor.
Now in private practice, Bill Johnston had been a federal prosecutor in Waco, Texas.
The Branch Davidian complex in Waco, Texas goes up in flames.
11 of the survivors now face murder and conspiracy charges in connection with the killing of 4 federal agents.
And in 1993, he was part of the team prosecuting the 11 surviving Branch Davidians.
Those agents did not die in vain. Mrs. Doolin came to me and she said, "I've heard maybe you can help me."
She explained to Bill that she doesn't believe her daughter took her own life, so she'd been working on Carrie's case with her angels.
What Charlie's angels were bringing to us was invaluable. They were this group of strong women who were not going to just let this go. They brought a series of stories about Matt's conduct at different points in his life.
Bill pulled together his own posse. He brought together retired lawmen to take over this investigation.
So I called them my guys, and they became as invested in this case as if they were fighting for their own child.
The biggest thing was to get the body exhumed, get an actual autopsy, and find out what had actually happened to Carrie Baker, how she'd actually died.
We started unraveling this thing bit by bit by bit.
Matt Coffon is a member of the legendary Texas Rangers. He joins the team and reviews the evidence on the case.
There are red flag after red flag that something was not right. It was so compelling that I could not automatically agree with the Hewitt police investigation. So I thought, okay, let's kind of break it down.
You're presented with a crime scene that's not really a crime scene, right?
These are photographs. As you can tell, there's just not much to them. There were so many things early on in this investigation that just did not match. And part of it was Matt Baker's explanation of his timeline.
He says he left and then he came back, and it was such a short time that she couldn't have died within that period.
That was the theory that we were operating on. His timetable did not really match up. This is an overall view of Hewitt, Texas, and it's not large.
And these locations are very close to each other.
Minutes apart, especially that time of night.
The team was also troubled by Carrie's suicide note, which Officer Michael Irving says was pointed out by Matt.
He just said, there's a suicide note, suicide note, suicide note. So he did direct me straight to the note.
The so-called suicide note was typed.
It's not signed, and that should be a red flag to any investigator. Let's take this a little bit further. It says, tell my mom and dad that I love them too. In this case, two is T-O, not comma, T-O-O.
She was a teacher. She could spell.
Yes.
Something didn't set right. And for me, it all pointed back to that note. That suicide note. I didn't speak up. At that time, I'd been a police officer for 6 months. If I could go and turn back time, there are a lot of things I would have done differently.
Was there an autopsy done initially?
There was no autopsy done. And so at this point, we decided that we needed to have tissue samples from Carrie's body, so we wanted to have that body exhumed.
At the time of the Hewitt police investigation, they concluded Carrie had died by suicide of over-the-counter sleep medication.
One of the tasks that Linda took on for herself was investigating Unisom. She found that it would have taken a great deal to have caused Carrie's death, and that she wouldn't have died quickly.
We came up with clues that made us believe that perhaps there were prescription medications given to her without her knowledge.
Nearly 4 months after Carrie's death, the Texas Rangers, in conjunction with Hewitt Police, are able to get Judge Martin to sign an order allowing for the exhumation of Carrie's body.
As we gathered information from various sources, determined to, we need to go that route.
By this time, we were working pretty closely with a detective at the Hewitt Police Department.
It was critical that they had an autopsy.
We had a lot of circumstantial evidence, but we needed some scientific evidence. It's something that a prosecutor can hold in their hands and say, okay, now we may have something here.
What else would the Charlie's Angels of Waco and their investigative team learn?
A photograph was found on Matt Baker's computer. He tried to delete it.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
Was Carrie's death a terrible tragedy or something much more sinister?
A manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life.
The Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead. Her death originally ruled a suicide. But is that how the mother of two really died?
Maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger.
But you also discover in that Bible, Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way.
You don't quickly dress a dead body.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
I'm gonna tell what you did. And he said, you better not do that.
Sometimes faith can be used to manipulate and to control people.
Preachers, the good ones are great. The bad ones have the most power of anybody.
Here they were, the police, in the home of a Baptist minister with a suicide note and sleeping pills and a bottle of alcohol. Well, the police at that point aren't thinking murder. They're thinking that Carrie committed suicide.
Texas pastor Matt Baker had lost a young daughter years earlier. He now appears to be facing yet another tragedy, the suicide of his wife, Carrie. But her family isn't buying it.
I knew that Carrie would never take her own life.
We will fight for the truth.
Could Carrie have been murdered? The Hewitt police, now collaborating with Texas Ranger Matt Coffon, who's been working with Carrie's family, obtained an order to exhume Carrie's body. And the autopsy results are now in.
In her muscle tissue, there was a presence of Ambien. And that was huge, huge.
And at the time of her death, she didn't have a prescription for Ambien.
No.
The autopsy now lists Carrie's manner of death as undetermined.
Now you're in undetermined land, now you're in a mystery, now let's solve the mystery.
Bill Johnston and his team continue to dig, now taking a closer look at those few crime scene photos. What's this?
This is a picture of Carrie's arm. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing the beginning of lividity, the purplish color from the pooling of the blood. You know, when the heart pumps, it pumps through the veins and the arteries. When the heart stops, everything settles to its lowest point. It's gravity. We have lividity set in the body, and that takes time. And this was a problem with Bill Johnston and his team.
And so we found the person who wrote the book on crime scene reconstruction, Tom Bevel.
The first responders from the medical field are saying that lividity either was setting in or set. which in that time frame, that's a problem.
So this is their home right there, right?
Yeah, this is their home. So if he leaves his house at 11, 45 to 55 minutes later, lividity could not have been set in as it was in the photographs, all right?
Cawthon and the team believe that Carrie was likely dead before Matt Baker left his home. So if Carrie's suicide was a homicide, how was she killed? The photograph showed something more.
In one of the photographs, there is a small abrasion that is to the bridge of her nose.
We surmised that this was very likely done using a throw pillow off of a couch. It was kind of a coarse material that very likely could have caused an abrasion.
Indicating that maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
That's right.
The abrasion on Carrie's nose, it's not noted in the autopsy, but the presence of the generic form of Ambien is. So Bill Johnston wants to look into Matt's digital trail. He sues Matt for wrongful death and obtains access to his computer records.
A month before Carrie's death, they discovered Matt was on the computer searching for the term overdose by sleeping pills.
I did search that. I did research to see, can you overdose? Is that even a possibility that I need to worry about? My wife overdosing on sleeping pills.
As they continued to go through the computer, they found where he tried to buy Ambien, had moved it into a cart to purchase it.
And that bit of forensics in the computers now hard linked into the toxicology forensics. Our theory became, the Ambien in the wine cooler, he got her sleepy with that so he could later suffocate her. That was our theory.
And remember those writings in Carrie's Bible about Cassidy? Well, those were written years earlier, but there was a recent troubling entry dated just 5 days before Carrie's death, which says, I feel like I have so much worry. Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm. I am not sure what is going on with Matt. What does that indicate?
It's ominous. It's almost like she is afraid of him.
Looking back on it, they were predictive.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger, and she didn't realize that at that point that he was involved with somebody else.
During this investigation, we got a clue from a woman who worked in a jewelry store and said within a couple of weeks after Carrie's death, Matt Baker comes into the jewelry store with a woman, and they're looking at engagement rings.
No, we were not. One of our rules for our kids was when they turn 6 years old, they can get earrings. And so we began looking for jewelry, earrings.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
This is Vanessa Bulls. She was the other woman. Now, this is a photograph that we found on his computer in trash.
We knew there was going to be a birthday party, and we took a picture of all the girls and Matt and Vanessa.
It wasn't long after Carrie's death when people came over. They didn't see any pictures of Carrie at all, but there was a picture of Vanessa with the girls. 2 of Carrie and Matt's friends came to help with the party, and one of them stayed overnight, and she saw Matt sitting on the couch with Vanessa's head on his lap.
To Carrie's family, it was clear that a romantic relationship had developed between Matt and Vanessa. 4 months after Carrie's death, police believe Vanessa Bulls just might be the key to solving this case. So they bring her to the Hewitt Police Station for questioning.
It's just scary.
I know.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Like I said, I'm going to ask you some questions about that, Carrie.
Okay.
It just doesn't mean the truth. Okay?
I'm sorry, this is just scary.
I know.
4 months after Carrie's death, Vanessa Bowles, the woman who appears to have become romantically involved with Matt Baker, is now sitting at the police station, answering questions about how that relationship unfolded.
Every once in a while, he started calling just to chat, just kind of asking about my divorce and, kind of saying how, like, God would work everything out.
How long was that it took it to progress to him calling a couple times a day?
I want to say a couple of weeks. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't nice to have someone who, had 2 daughters and would possibly, be the dad to my child.
Sure.
Having an affair that predated the killing, that would be big evidence.
Did you ever meet him romantically?
No.
Never? Okay.
After, yes. After his wife passed away.
Okay.
Because I didn't think there was anything wrong.
2020 obtained emails, never before broadcast, that show Carrie and Matt's relationship unraveling in the weeks before Carrie's death, at the same time as Matt and Vanessa's phone calls start to heat up.
She sensed that something was very wrong.
In one of those emails, Matt blames Carrie for Cassidy's death, writing you wanted her to be pain-free, and then telling her your prayer was the one that was answered.
That made her angry, and she was going to leave him. I suggested they get counseling.
Back in that police interview, Vanessa, who at this point had broken things off with Matt, seems open to believing he could have murdered Carrie.
Do you think that he had anything to do with her death?
I think anything's possible now.
The Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead in her home. Her death, originally ruled a suicide. But now, nearly a year and a half later, a judge has set a hearing to try to determine if that is how the mother of 2 really died.
A formal inquest into Carrie's death was held, but in the end, the justice of the peace, who initially declared it a suicide, made the same determination that the autopsy had made a year earlier.
That Carrie Lynn Baker's manner and cause of death shall be recorded as undetermined.
So what do you do?
And at some point, we have to do what we think is right. And in this case, it was to get an arrest warrant for Matt Baker.
Even though it wasn't ruled a homicide, nearly a year and a half after Carrie's death, Matt Baker is arrested for her murder.
Matt Baker is accused of drugging his wife Carrie with sleeping pills and then suffocating her with a pillow.
There's no way that he could take a life. And I know my sons, and I just don't believe he could do that.
And we have breaking news for you now from the McLennan County Jail.
Matt Baker could be released any time now. His $200,000 bond has been paid in cash.
My best decision was to move away from there and to move back here to my hometown, where I felt support and felt loved.
And it's in Kerrville, about 200 miles from Hewitt, that our cameras catch up with Matt and his daughters.
This is a little bit of everything. They have a cafe where they take flowers and they crush them up and pretend it's chicken noodle soup. Don't be embarrassed.
2020 gets a glimpse of life with their father.
Favorite thing to do is play with my dad.
After losing their mother.
Each have their own,
Mine, hers.
and they separate pants from shirts.
I pick mine and then he picks hers.
But I have to okay hers.
Yes.
Why?
Because she likes spaghetti straps.
But I don't wear them to school. I'm not allowed.
And during this last year, he was a single parent, working and taking care of his girls. They emotionally attached to their dad very strongly, the younger one especially.
This is my favorite toy because it used to be my dad's when he was a little kid.
Once Matt was released, he went on kind of a press tour.
He tried to tell the world his side of the story.
Would Matt Baker have the nerve to actually interview for and do a photo shoot with Texas Monthly? Yes, he would.
Pretty much anybody who wanted to talk with him, Matt Baker had an open door.
Tonight on 2020, was it suicide or murder?
The story goes national, and Matt Baker sits down with 2020 for an interview. He proclaims his innocence and denies he had an affair with Vanessa Bowles.
It was a friend, it was a very good friend, but there's nothing there now. I don't believe in adultery, I don't believe in divorce.
The problem was that for him was that he changed his story a little bit every time he gave one.
Matt tells 2020 that it was the police who found that suicide note.
One of the police officers found it and handed it to me, and I held it in my hands for a brief moment, and I looked at the first line, and I handed it back and said, I can't read it right now.
But listen as Matt refers to that suicide note in his 911 call.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold, and there's a note that says, I'm sorry, basically.
There's no way I could ever have hurt my wife. I loved her. She's the mother of my children, and I miss her, and I did not hurt my wife.
We felt validated with the arrest, but I'm going to tell you right now, all the arrests in the world mean nothing without a good prosecution.
The Texas Rangers made an arrest on the case, and the case was then transferred to our office. And I believed that Matt had killed Carrie, but I didn't feel like that we had the proof to take it to a trial and get a conviction.
If you get an acquittal, it's over.
6 months after Matt Baker's arrest, the murder charge is dismissed after prosecutors failed to indict him.
It was frustrating, but I mean, we knew it would take time and we weren't going to stop.
People started running around town with bumper stickers that said "Justice for Carrie." Love trumps evil was underneath it.
We had truth on our side. We had God on our side.
We had Bill Johnston, and we were going to continue civilly.
But his story was not adding up anymore.
You wouldn't have left those two girls there if you didn't think it was safe.
And would Matt's account of what he says he did when he found Carrie check out?
He's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
When the criminal case was stalled and it wasn't going forward, Bill Johnston filed a wrongful death case, and that allowed him to subpoena Matt Baker for a deposition.
It's the lower left of the...
2.5 years after the death of his wife, Matt Baker is on the hot seat, answering questions under oath about the night she died.
About 10:45-ish, a little before 11, she asked me if I could run a couple of errands.
Now, had she sort of refreshed herself and gotten awake and got forward thinking by that time?
It was still kind of that half awake, just talking, but still kind of real drowsy.
I'm conjecturing that it went through his mind that maybe she already took all the sleeping pills before he left.
Was she aware enough that you could observe that she could handle if the kids needed her, for instance?
I felt that she probably could.
She had to be fine, or else she was incapacitated and he was a bad father and he just left his girls with an incapacitated person. Which one is it, Matt? So he chose the high road, that yes, Carrie was fine. So if Carrie's fine, she's not getting ready to die.
Bill was able to ask him question after question after question and get answers from him that were very helpful.
While you have the phone pressed against your shoulder, you put on her panties first, is that correct?
I believe that's right.
And then what did you do?
And I put on her shirt.
Okay, and she's on the bed at this time?
Correct.
But Matt had told police a different version of how he dressed Carrie that night.
So I put the panties on her in the bed as I was getting her out, and then when she was on the floor, I put her shirt on.
The clothing, it appears consistent, especially her panties, as to how you would typically find if they were put on by the individual, not somebody else with a
lady who is not able to assist.
If he would lie about dressing her, why? And he wanted to explain their body was cold by saying she was nude on top of the bed, as if she would have aired out, cooled off.
Just a stick figure put where she came to rest once you moved. How difficult was that to move her?
I guess at the time you don't even think about it. You just do what you have to do.
We wanted to know if Matt's story holds up, so we asked Texas Ranger Matt Cawthon to put it to the test with a dummy roughly the same weight as Carrie's at the time of her death.
He would have had to reposition the body. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
How much time would he have had to do this between the call to 911 and the chest compressions?
About 2 minutes.
To dress her, put her body on the floor, all while on the phone with 911. We're going to see if you can do this. I'm going to put a stopwatch to it, and here we go. And you're doing it as fast as you can.
Well, I'm doing it the best I can. And I feel the phone's about to fall.
We're at 48 seconds now. We're about a minute 20.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking to the 911 operator.
That's 1 minute 57 seconds. And then
just to get her dressed. That doesn't include the removing from the bed and the chest compression.
And I know how to do CPR.
Oh, you do?
In listening to the 911 call, it sounded phony.
Do I need to go unlock the front door?
I'll let you know when they start getting close, okay?
Okay.
I think he'd give himself an Oscar, and I'd give him a Rotten Tomato.
Just keep doing compression.
I would not have known at the time when I got there that he had been doing CPR.
You're still doing compressions?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
he did not sound winded on the
no,
phone.
No, not at all. He didn't have to do chest compressions because she was already dead. He killed her, I think, before he left to go run alibi errands.
Despite Matt's inconsistencies, prosecutors feel they need more, so they bring in a new detective to help with the investigation.
My name is Abden Rodriguez, and in 2009, I was a criminal investigator for the McLennan County District Attorney's Office.
I hear they call you the human lie detector?
I guess because of some of the confessions that I was able to get.
Abdon is asked to review the case and find evidence that would help indict Matt Baker.
I wanted to look at the interviews that had been done. There was a lot of deception, and I could see how, especially Vanessa was doing it.
How many times a week would you talk, you think, prior to her death? Once every day for a couple hours, and maybe midday, or?
Sometimes a couple times a day.
As you can see, she's got her arms crossed and her legs crossed. That's a big red flag to me.
When she passed away that week, how were the conversations? Were they kind of the same way they were before?
They were really the same.
And I told him, and I said, look, the whole key to this case is going to be Vanessa Booth. She's pretty and very smooth and friendly, but at the same time, she's a liar.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
After interviewing Vanessa, Abdon decides to subpoena her to testify in front of a grand jury.
I said, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to listen to your testimony. And I said, and as soon as you lie, I'm going to file charges on you.
When they brought Vanessa Bowles in for the grand jury, that was kind of a last-ditch effort.
So we're like, okay, let's see what happens.
As she and I were walking down the hall, she whispered to me, I'm going to tell y'all everything.
Behind closed doors, Vanessa Bowles' grand jury testimony is the last step in getting Matt Baker indicted.
A former preacher charged with the murder of his wife
Finally, Vanessa's testimony is the smoking gun.
Yes, it was. She had everything we needed.
The civil case was dropped at that point in order to let the criminal case continue.
Matt Baker is charged with first-degree murder, accused of drugging and suffocating his wife, Carrie, and making it look like a suicide. He pleads not guilty. Now, 4 years after his wife's death, Matt Baker is on trial for her murder.
That first day of the trial, the gallery was full.
We have a lot of people here in the gallery today.
True crime author Catherine Casey was in the courtroom every day.
I followed this story from the first time it hit the Texas newspapers. It was just so fascinating that this had unfolded, especially in Waco, in this city that's just dominated by religion.
Prosecutors began poking holes in Matt's story from that night, starting with the 911 call and his claim that he performed CPR on Carrie.
We're going to go ahead and do compressions. You're going to do it fast and hard 400 times. 400? 400 times.
Did any police officers arrive before you?
I was the first one there.
And what did he tell you?
He pulled her off the bed and put her on the floor in order to do CPR.
And what was his demeanor?
Very calm.
Did that strike you as odd?
Yes.
Even as a police officer, I would not be as calm as he was that night.
There was no way that in that period of time he was able to move her, dress her, and was doing CPR while he was having this conversation.
He wasn't sweating. He did not seem to be in any type of physical distress.
The computer expert found incredible evidence regarding searches, regarding suicide, regarding sleeping pills, and regarding Ambien, which became critical.
Can you tell the jury what was extracted from the muscle tissue of Carrie Baker?
We found 3 different drugs, phentermine, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem. And then zolpidem, and its common name is Ambien.
We never were able to determine where he got the Ambien from.
But we were able to determine that he was going to these websites and that he had gotten as far as putting Ambien in a cart.
Defense attorney Guy Gray pointed out that there was no evidence that Matt actually ordered Ambien from that website.
They went through the process of looking at it, but it was aborted and no purchase of Ambien was made.
Correct. Yes.
No further question.
You state your name for the jury, please.
Joanne Bristol.
Joanne Bristol, Carrie's grief counselor, testified about those comments she says Carrie made about Matt.
She said, "I'm thinking my husband is going to kill me," but she recanted the statement.
How do you analyze that, or what do you think about that?
I felt at that time that I knew this client very well. She had never misled me, and so when she said, "Oh, but I know he wouldn't do that," I believed her.
You didn't advise her to leave the house or move out. You didn't call law enforcement. You took that as the recanting as an accurate or true reflection of what was going on.
From her, yes.
Day 4 of the trial, and it's the prosecution's star witness, who everyone is waiting to hear.
This case was one of those cases where all of the attention is focused on one witness, and that one witness was Vanessa Bowles.
State calls Vanessa Bowles.
I remember looking at Matt more than looking at the jury. I wanted to see his response, and I think he was stunned.
Raise your right hand.
After years of denying their affair, Vanessa now admits that Matt began to pursue her even before Carrie died.
Please have a seat.
He started asking me things about my divorce and started telling me, "Whoever finds you is going to be a lucky man."
Did he say anything else unusual to you?
He came by and was kind of smiling. He said, "Oh, don't date other guys, just date your pastor," and kind of smiled.
Did he say anything else after that?
He said, "Will you really date your pastor? I've had a vasectomy, so I can't get you pregnant. Also, I don't have any STDs." And he also started telling me that because of Carrie's depression, as he stated, their sex life had been lacking.
And at the time, were you buying into what he was telling you about Carrie?
I was buying into everything. He was a complete, and still is, a manipulative liar who took me, my vulnerable state, and made me believe everything he said.
What happened then in in early March as you and Matt started to spend Fridays at the Baker home?
And he asked if he could hold my hands to pray, and he did. Then afterwards, he started to kiss me. Then he just took my hand and led me to the bedroom.
Feeling guilty about being with her pastor, Vanessa says that Matt tried to reassure her.
I was extremely remorseful. I couldn't believe what just happened. He started saying, "It's okay, don't feel bad, just ask God to forgive you." And he said, in reality, he said, "I don't think God believes that anyone can just be with one person the rest of their lives."
After Carrie's death, Vanessa says Matt wanted more, perhaps even making her the next Mrs. Baker.
At some point, did you and Matt take the girls and go to Kay Jewelers in the mall?
We did. He stated that the girls wanted to go look at wedding rings for me.
Are you telling the jury that he was prepared at this point, a week or two after Carrie's death, to trade in Carrie's wedding set to get you a ring that you wanted?
Correct.
Matt had denied this in interviews, but a salesperson from the jewelry store corroborated Vanessa's account.
She tried on about 4 or 5 rings, asked his opinion. He just would tell her it didn't matter what he liked, it was what she liked, because she would be the one wearing it.
Vanessa then drops a bomb when she says not only did Matt want out of his marriage,
He said that if we ever fell so much in love that he would find a way out of it.
she also knows what happened to Carrie Baker.
I told him, "I'm going to tell what you did." And he said, "You better not do that."
Vanessa testifies that Matt was openly plotting Carrie's death.
At what point did he start talking about planning her murder?
It was sometime mid-March. He said that, she took sleeping pills every night, so maybe he could make it look like she overdosed on sleeping pills.
Vanessa Bowles talked about how Matt had ruminated about all the different ways he might kill Carrie.
He talked about making it look like she had hung herself. He talked about tampering with the brakes of her car, maybe doing a drive-by shooting.
What I saw from Vanessa's testimony was a man who was much more evil than even I believed he was.
She testified that Matt planned to kill Carrie with a tainted milkshake and then craft a suicide note.
1 to 2 weeks before Carrie's death, did he tell you that he had in fact tried that?
He did. He sent an email and said she took a sip of it and said that it tasted like lead. And so then he said he took a drink and said, "Oh, well, the ice cream must have been bad." He mentioned that he would leave a note, and he said that he would type it. And I said, "That's never going to work. You're going to be caught." And he said, "Oh, no, she types everything."
Did he say something else about what he believed other people thought about her mental state?
Oh, he said that no one would question it because of how depressed she was.
Vanessa stuns the courtroom when she says Matt Baker told her how he killed his wife.
He had gotten big horse pills. He said he emptied out all the contents and put crushed Ambien in them. He said he handcuffed her to the bed, started kissing her and touching her all over until she fell asleep. Then he said he got the pillow and put it over her face.
What did he say happened next?
He said that he thought she was dead, and he just said she just took one big ass for air, and he said, "Oh," and then put the pillow back on her face, except he did this with his hand to be sure that he suffocated her.
He didn't even feel enough remorse when he realized that she was still alive to rethink it. He just wanted to finish the job.
He said he typed out the suicide note, printed it, got her hand, and he said that he ran her hand all around the sides of it and put her fingerprints all over it. He said that he set everything up, locked the door, and left.
What was the reaction in the courtroom to Vanessa's testimony that not only did Matt Baker kill his wife, but that he had been planning it?
He had planning it, and the things that he did, people couldn't believe it. I think the more surprising thing was that they couldn't believe that she's up there telling all this.
So you knew that Friday, April 7th, of 2006 was the day that he was going to try it again.
I knew he was going to try it then, yes.
All right. And you didn't report that to anybody?
No.
Vanessa says she had second thoughts about Matt and the cover-up of Carrie's murder.
Not only had I known about this and not done the right thing, in truth, who would believe me? He was a preacher. And so I felt like I was stuck.
She then chose to break it off with him.
I decided that I didn't care what he told me anymore, that we didn't worship the same God. So I called him. I told him, I never want to see you again. And he became irate. He started saying, I killed my wife for you, and now you're leaving.
In a move Vanessa believed was meant to intimidate her, she testifies that Matt sent her an MP3 of a song called Dirty Little Secret.
He was talking about the murder plan, and he later referenced it, stating, I need to keep my mouth shut, don't tell anyone, or you'll be just another regret.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Bowles,
The defense pressed Vanessa on why she was now coming clean about everything.
how would we know to believe you, Vanessa?
Because what do I have to gain from this right now? I'm setting things right. I made a mistake here because a manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life. And this testimony is going to put him where he needs to be.
It's now up to the jury to determine where Matt needs to be.
Folks, we can't protect her from harm. The only thing now we can do is give her justice. Then turned and pointed to Matt and said to convict this murdering minister and find him guilty for one reason only, because he is guilty.
The indictment says there's got to be facts of drugs and a pillow. And the only way you can get those facts is by believing Vanessa Bowles. And she is just not credible.
I think a lot of people struggled with Vanessa. I mean, she had done horrible things, but I think it really helped her credibility when she was on the stand because she didn't try to fade her own culpability.
I think Vanessa was absolutely the key to the case.
They've reached a unanimous verdict, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Matt D. Baker, guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in the indictment.
For the sentencing phase of the trial, the jury gets to hear additional testimony.
They came back and had witnesses from his past come and talk to us about things that he had done.
One by one, women testify about sexual misconduct they say they endured from Matt Baker.
He came up from behind me, put his hand on my breast. I pushed him away, told him no. He tried to kiss me, told him no.
I remember having to use all my strength to try to keep him off of me and from taking my clothes off.
Including Laura Wilson, the student trainer who worked alongside him in college.
He took his hand and began running up my thigh and between my legs.
I think as a jury, to see, what all he's been doing since he was a teenager made us 100% feel like that we had definitely made the right decision.
The jury sentenced Matt Baker to 65 years in prison. And finally, Carrie's mother has a chance to confront him directly.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today?
So what does Matt have to say from behind bars?
Yeah, we asked him to. We gave him a call.
The sentence of the court that you be confined for a term of 65 years. There's some victim impact statements given by the family of the victim. You may proceed.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today? For a little while, okay?
But she did talk to him directly, and he looked down.
Matt, she loved you. And then you took her from us, Matt. You discarded her like she was yesterday's trash. You murdered the mother of your children. But love trumps evil. I don't know why, but I felt pity for him.
I truly believe in my innocence. I believe the jury made a mistake in this.
After his sentencing, 2020 speaks with Matt Baker again, this time in prison, where he finally admits to his affair with Vanessa, but continues to maintain his innocence.
I'm coming clean on the lying about Vanessa. I made a mistake. I'm human. I made a mistake there. I should not have ever got involved in that. I was having a tough spot in my marriage, and I took the chicken way out. But I would never have hurt my wife. I never did. I never laid a hand on her, ever.
Their mother was erased from them. They need to know she loved them. And she didn't leave them by choice.
A year and a half after Matt's conviction, Linda was given custody of her granddaughters.
It was a long journey for the girls to understand what had actually happened to their mother.
Carrie Baker didn't kill herself. She was murdered.
He was a Baptist pastor, preacher.
He was a predator.
I think he's a dark angel.
That ye may fear the Lord your God.
You get to be the hero during daylight and sneak around in the dark and be evil.
What do you make of the fact that now, nearly 20 years after the case, Matt Baker still maintains his innocence?
He's one of those people that can just lie and believe in himself that he's innocent.
The real hero in this is Linda Doolin. She fought for her child.
A mother. A mother's will.
It's strong.
Determination.
There's nothing like it, really.
It touches you.
It does.
Why?
Because I have children. And these are hard things. Linda Doolin is a brave, strong woman. I'll always admire that about her.
We love each other, and we knew Carrie did not take her life, and we weren't going to sit back until somebody would listen to us.
She was an amazing mother. And she would fight for any of us. And I just wanted everybody to know the truth.
It began with a notebook. A small leather-bound diary found in a box of forgotten belongings at a second-hand bookstore in Shibuya, Tokyo. The store owner, a quiet man named Hiroshi, almost threw it away. The pages were yellow, the ink faded, but there was something about it, the way certain words were underlined frantic, as if someone had been writing against time itself. The first line read, "If something happens to me, look for the man in the white coat." The handwriting belonged to a girl named Aki Tanaka, age 17, a high school student who vanished one rainy night in May 1995. Her disappearance had haunted Tokyo for decades. It was the kind of case that got buried under newer crimes, newer headlines, until the diary surfaced. When the police reopened the file, the old photos looked like ghosts, the narrow alley behind the train station, the flickering streetlight, the single shoe found near a drain. Nothing else. No body. No answers. Just the endless question, where did Aki go? Detective Kenji Sato remembered the case. He had been a young officer then, still believing that truth always surfaced if you looked hard enough. But Aki's case broke that belief. He'd watched her parents age under fluorescent lights at the precinct year after year, asking if there was any progress. There never was. By 2000, the case had gone cold. Files sealed, memories frozen in dust, until now. The diary contained 43 pages. Most were mundane homework friends, a crush on a boy named Toru, who worked part-time at a nearby music store. But then the tone changed. Around mid-April, her writing became nervous. She mentioned a man following her home. She wrote about strange phone calls, static-filled voices, someone whispering her name through the receiver. She even described seeing a white coat reflected in a store window, but when she turned around, no one was there. The investigators sent the diary for analysis. The ink was consistent with the 1990s. The fingerprints matched Aki's school records. There was no doubt it was authentic. But the real shock came when forensic technicians found traces of blood beneath the binding human female, consistent with Aki's blood type. That discovery turned an old disappearance into a homicide investigation. Kenji was brought back as a consultant. He walked into the same precinct where the walls still smelled of coffee and rain. Younger officers greeted him with polite curiosity. To them, this was history. To him, it was unfinished business. He opened the old case file. The black and white photos stared back, Aki smiling in her school uniform, cherry blossoms behind her, the kind of photo parents frame forever. He remembered interviewing her classmates back then. None of them had seen her after school that day. Her last known sighting was at Shinjuku Station around 7:45 p.m. She was seen entering the train alone. She never came out. But the diary added a new layer, an entry dated May 10, 1995. He said I remind him of someone he lost. He said he can't let me disappear again. That line gave everyone chills. Who was he? And what did he mean by again? They began re-examining the witness statements. One name surfaced: Dr. Kubo, a psychiatrist who lived near Aki's school. In the 1990s, he was questioned briefly because one of his patients claimed he had followed a girl in uniform. But there had been no evidence, and the police dropped it. Dr. Kubo had since retired and moved to rural Hokkaido. The team decided to pay him a visit. Meanwhile, the diary's final entry became the center of obsession. If something happens to me, look for the man in the white coat. Some thought it meant a doctor. Others believed it referred to a lab technician. Maybe someone from the hospital, where Aki's mother once worked. But no one had noticed one chilling detail in the old crime scene photos: a white lab coat folded neatly in a plastic bag found near a garbage bin 2 streets from the station. It had been dismissed as trash. Now it was reclassified as potential evidence. The coat was sent for DNA testing using modern techniques unavailable in the 1990s. The results came back after 3 weeks. There were 2 distinct DNA profiles, one female, one male. The female matched Aki's mother, suggesting she might have handled it years ago when searching for her daughter. But the male DNA was new. It didn't match anyone in the criminal database. Until one night, while running cross-checks with newly uploaded genetic data, an analyst gasped. It matched a partial profile from a 1994 assault case near Meguro involving a suspect who was never caught. The suspect's blood had been found on a broken glass bottle left behind at the scene. Same genetic markers, same signature pattern. The chances of coincidence were 1 in 8 billion. The name associated with the Meguro file was Ryohei Natsume, a medical student who vanished in 1996 after being expelled from Tokyo Medical University for misconduct. He had lived just 6 blocks from Aki Tanaka. No one had seen him since. The timeline aligned perfectly. Kenji Sato requested a deeper search. The address from Natsume's old student ID led them to a decaying apartment complex scheduled for demolition. The hallway smelled of mold and rust. In room 302, the new tenant said he often found old letters behind the wallpaper sealed away, as if hidden deliberately. Among them was a faded photograph, Aki standing beside a man whose face was half torn from age. On the back, written in the same shaky handwriting as the diary, he said, "We met before." That photo reignited the city's memory. News stations picked up the story. 1995 Shinjuku cold case reopened, missing girl's diary, found the headlines screamed. Social media buzzed with theories. People speculated about cults, medical experiments, obsession hypnosis. But the truth was stranger than fiction. Kenji couldn't sleep. He went back to the diary again and again, tracing her words with his fingers as if they were clues in themselves. He said I remind him of someone he lost. Kenji pulled up hospital records from the 1980s and found that Ryohai's younger sister, Emi Natsume, had died in a hit-and-run accident near their home when she was 7. The driver was never found. Aki Tanaka had been born the same year Emi died. They even looked vaguely similar: dark hair, same round eyes, same gentle smile. Obsession, replacement, projection. It all fit. But where was Natsume now? Detectives tracked rumors. In 2003, a man using Natsume's ID had rented a cabin near Mount Mitake, northwest of Tokyo. Locals remembered him quiet, polite, always wearing a white coat even in summer. He said he was studying mushrooms. The cabin had been abandoned for years, but investigators found old tools, surgical gloves, and jars filled with preserved insects. And beneath a loose floorboard, something else, a Polaroid camera still functional. Inside it, one photo remained undeveloped. They processed it in the lab. When the image appeared, everyone in the room went silent. It was Aki. Her eyes closed, her uniform torn. Behind her, a man's shadow elongated by candlelight. The timestamp read, May 11th, 1995, 02:43 a.m. That was the night she disappeared. Kenji stood motionless. After 30 years, the face of Tokyo's most haunting cold case was finally emerging from the dark. But justice, he knew, might never come. Natsume could be dead, or worse still, alive, hiding in plain sight. The only thing left was the diary, the voice of a girl who seemed to know she wouldn't make it home. If something happens to me, look for the man in the white coat. Kenji looked at that line one last time before closing the file. It wasn't just a warning. It was a prophecy. And now, as the rain started falling outside the precinct, Tokyo seemed to whisper her name again. Kenji didn't go home that night. He stayed in his office long after the others had left, staring at the rain dripping down the window. The city lights blurred through the glass, and in their reflection, he thought he saw her Aki Tanaka standing by the platform, her umbrella trembling in the storm. He blinked and she was gone. He'd seen too many ghosts in his career, but this one felt real. Maybe because the case had never let him go. Maybe because Tokyo itself remembered her. He reopened the map of the 1995 investigation. Red circles marked her school, her home, the train station. A dotted line showed her last known route. But the new evidence, the diary, the coat, the cabin, formed another pattern. A triangle, each point exactly 12 kilometers apart. Coincidence or something deliberate? He couldn't sleep until he knew. The next morning, he met Detective Ayumi Morita, a forensic expert who had grown up hearing about the case from her father, also a policeman. She was sharp, relentless, and fascinated by old mysteries. It's strange, she said, flipping through the diary scans. Every time Aki wrote about the man in the white coat, the ink pressure increased. It's like she was pressing down harder, almost carving the words. Fear leaves patterns. She pointed to one line under a UV light. Hidden between the letters, faint indentations formed another phrase. He said, she's still inside me. Kenji froze, inside her. Ayumi nodded. Maybe he meant her spirit. Or maybe something else. Look here. She turned to the next page. She drew something looks like a hospital hallway. And this symbol. It was a circle with 3 slashes through it. Kenji recognized it immediately. He'd seen it once before on the basement wall of the cabin near Mount Mitake. A strange insignia carved into concrete. Back then they thought it was random graffiti. Now it looked intentional. They traced the symbol's origin through old psychiatric reports. It belonged to a group of experimental therapists in the 1980s who believed trauma could be transferred between individuals, an idea long dismissed as pseudoscience. But one of the group's members had been a young medical researcher named Ryohei Natsume. Everything connected again. They decided to revisit Natsume's old university. The archives were dusty, untouched since the 1990s. A clerk brought out a box labeled Natsume R. Inside were academic papers, photos, and one unsettling note written by a professor, promising but unstable. Shows unhealthy fascination with memory implantation. In one photo, Natsume stood in a lab wearing his trademark white coat, smiling faintly. On the back of the photo, a handwritten dedication for Emi, so you'll never leave me again. Kenji felt a chill run through him. Ayumi whispered, he lost his sister. Maybe he tried to bring her back, through someone else. That idea hung heavy in the air. The deeper they dug, the stranger it got. In 1994, a year before Aki vanished, Natsume had volunteered at a local hospital. Records showed he treated several teenage patients suffering from night terrors and memory loss. All girls, all around Aki's age. When the police tried to contact them now, 3 were deceased suicides, accidental overdoses, 1 missing. The only surviving patient Haruka Ishii agreed to meet. Haruka lived alone in a small apartment in Saitama. She looked fragile, pale, like someone who hadn't slept in years. When she opened the door, she said, I knew you'd come. I dreamed of this night. Kenji introduced himself and she smiled weakly. You want to ask about him? About the doctor? She sat down by the window, clutching a cup of tea that trembled in her hands. He was kind at first. He said he could help me forget the accident. But then he started saying strange things. He said I reminded him of his sister. He made me wear her ribbon, white with small cherry blossoms. He said the past can live again if you find the right vessel. Ayumi leaned forward. Did you ever meet Aki Tanaka? Haruka shook her head. No, but I heard her name. He talked to someone who wasn't there. He called her Aki, sometimes Emi. I think he mixed them. He said he had found the perfect balance. Kenji's voice was low. Did he ever hurt you? Her silence was the answer. When they left the apartment, the air outside felt colder. We need to exhume the soil near the cabin, Ayumi said. If he buried something, anything, we'll find it. They got a warrant the next day. The forest around Mount Mitake was silent, wrapped in fog. The cabin stood like a relic, its roof collapsing under moss. As the forensic team began digging, the sound of shovels echoed through the trees. Hours passed before one of the officers shouted, We found something. A small wooden box wrapped in a plastic sheet. Inside they found bones, partial delicate belonging to a teenage girl. The jaw was fractured, the wrist bound. Next to the remains was a locket engraved with initials. Everyone fell silent. But the shock deepened when DNA results came back. The bones were female, but not Aki's. They belonged to another missing girl from 1994, Miyu Watanabe, one of Natsume's hospital patients. She had vanished months before Aki. Kenji realized what that meant. He practiced. Ayumi whispered he was building towards something. They kept digging. More fragments surfaced, scraps of fabric, buttons, hairpins. Then, beneath the floorboards, they uncovered a sealed jar containing a roll of undeveloped film. 36 exposures. When processed, the images revealed a sequence of experiments, teenage girls seated in a chair, eyes closed, wires attached to their temples, a man in a white coat standing behind them. The room matched the cabin interior exactly. Each photo had a number and a note written in neat handwriting. Subject 1 memory induction begins. Subject 2 partial sync achieved. Subject 3 failure, subject deceased. The last frame showed Aki, her eyes open, terrified. Kenji stared at the image until the lab lights blurred. It wasn't just murder. It was obsession masked as science. But one question still haunted him. How did the diary end up in a Shibuya bookstore? The pages were too well preserved to have been buried. Someone had kept it. Someone who wanted it found. They traced the bookstore's supply records. The box containing the diary had been sold at an estate auction from an apartment in Kunitachi, Tokyo. The owner, Dr. Haruto Kubo, the retired psychiatrist they had planned to visit earlier. The same man who had once been questioned about Natsume. They drove to Hokkaido immediately. The countryside was covered in snow, endless white stretching under a gray sky. Dr. Kubo's house stood isolated near the woods, smoke curling from the chimney. He opened the door before they even knocked. I was expecting you, he said softly. His living room was filled with old books, medical journals, and a faint scent of antiseptic. On the table lay a photo of a young man in a white coat, Ryohei Natsume. He was my student, Kubo said. brilliant, disturbed, lost in grief. After his sister's death, he became consumed with the idea of memory transfer. He believed emotions could be transplanted like organs. Kenji asked, "You knew what he did." Kubo's eyes glistened. "I suspected. He came to me once covered in blood, said it wasn't what it looked like. He was trembling. I should have called the police, but I didn't. I thought he just needed help." Ayumi noticed something on the shelf, a small box labeled Tanaka. She opened it slowly. Inside was a torn page from the diary. The missing final entry. He said, "If I don't remember her, he'll make me remember. He said I'll become her." Kubo lowered his head. "He left that with me before he disappeared. I hid it. I didn't want anyone to see what he became." Kenji asked, "Where did he go?" Kubo looked toward the window where snow was falling silently. He said he found a new patient, someone who looked exactly like her. Ayumi's voice cracked. "When was this?" 2 years ago. The silence that followed felt infinite. 2 years ago. That meant Natsume was still alive. Kenji stood up, his pulse pounding. "We're not chasing a ghost. We're chasing a man who thinks ghosts can live inside people." Outside, the snow thickened. Tokyo was far behind, but its shadows stretched even here. As they drove back toward the city, Ayumi whispered, "If he's still searching for her, he won't stop until he finds another Aki." Kenji tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Then we'll find him first." But in the back of his mind, the words from the diary echoed again, sharper this time. He said, "She's still inside me." And for the first time, Kenji wondered, what if she was Tokyo? Was never silent. Even at dawn, it pulsed, trains clattering beneath the city neon signs flickering back to life, the hum of millions of lives moving at once. But that morning, everything felt heavier. News about the reopened case had spread overnight. 1995 cold case linked to new disappearances, the headlines screamed. The story had gone viral. Hashtags trended. The photograph of Aki Tanaka, the girl who vanished 30 years ago, was suddenly everywhere again. And in the middle of that storm sat Detective Kenji Sato, staring at a screen showing a new police report. Another missing girl, same age, same uniform, gone without a trace. Her name was Reina Kondo, 16, last seen leaving cram school near Akihabara 2 nights ago. Her parents said she never came home. The CCTV footage showed her walking through a narrow street at 8:12 p.m. holding an umbrella. At 8:14, the image glitched, static, flickering across the frame. When the video resumed, she was gone. In the corner of the frame, for less than a second, a blurred figure in white. Kenji felt the cold return. He turned to Ayumi. "It's him. He's back." They moved fast. Every subway entrance, every surveillance camera within a 2-kilometer radius was reviewed. Nothing. Whoever had taken Reina knew the city's blind spots, knew where cameras ended, where darkness began. By noon, Kenji stood at the exact spot where she vanished. Rain drizzled lightly, the same gray rain that had fallen the night Aki disappeared 3 decades earlier. He looked around a vending machine, humming softly, the faint smell of wet concrete, the echo of footsteps fading down an alley. "It's like time repeating itself," Ayumi whispered. Then Kenji noticed something. On the vending machine's metal surface, smeared faintly in condensation, was a crude drawing, 3 slashes crossing a circle. The same symbol from the diary. The same mark found in Natsume's cabin. He leaned closer. Beneath the symbol, a single line of text was scratched into the paint. "She remembers." They called the lab to dust it for prints. The results came back within hours. The partial fingerprint matched the one on the old camera found at the cabin, Ryohei Natsume's. For a moment, no one in the task force spoke. It was as if the past had just walked back into Tokyo. Kenji gathered the team. "He's sending a message," he said. "He's repeating the ritual. Every 30 years, maybe he believes memory has to be renewed. Reina isn't random. He chose her." Ayumi scrolled through Reina's social media. She volunteered at the university hospital once a week. Pediatric wing. Guess who was listed as a consultant there until last year? Kenji didn't need her to finish. Dr. Haruto Kubo. They raided Kubo's Tokyo apartment that night. It was empty, but on the desk sat a cassette recorder and a note written in calm handwriting. "You'll find what you're looking for beneath the city." The tape hissed when they played it. Then a voicemail, steady, eerily familiar. You keep chasing ghosts, Kenji. But ghosts don't die, they move. Ayumi froze. He said your name. Kenji's throat went dry. That's not Kubo's voice. That's Natsume's. The voice continued, almost whispering. You found my diary, but you read it wrong. She wasn't warning you. She was talking to me. Static filled the rest. They sent the tape for analysis. The background noise revealed a faint echo consistent with underground tunnels possibly near the old sewer system beneath Shinjuku built before the war. Those tunnels had been sealed off for decades, but not completely. Some entrances remained hidden under construction sites and abandoned stations. They geared up immediately. The rain turned heavy as they descended into the Undercity. Flashlights sliced through dripping walls. The air was thick with humidity and iron. Ayumi moved ahead, marking their path with chalk. Every few meters, another circle and slash symbol appeared carved deep into the stone. At the far end of a tunnel, they found a door made of rusted steel. It was padlocked, but from the other side came a faint rhythmic sound like humming. Kenji signaled the team. They forced the lock open. Inside was a small chamber illuminated by a single lamp. Medical charts covered the walls, yellowed with age. In the corner stood a chair with leather restraints. Beside it, a small shrine photographs of girls, including Aki and Reina, their images surrounded by candles. On the floor lay a notebook, another diary. The cover read, Subject Continuation Log 2025. Ayumi picked it up carefully. Inside were detailed notes written in precise script. Transfer process incomplete. Subject displays partial memory bleed. Identity overlap achieved at 62%. Requires stronger stimulus. And beneath that, a photograph, Reina eyes closed, wires attached to her temples. Kenji felt rage boiling inside him. He's trying to recreate her. Again. But the question remained, where was Reina now? The sound of dripping water echoed louder. Ayumi turned toward the back wall. Something was off. The bricks didn't align perfectly. She pressed one and a hidden latch clicked. A narrow corridor opened behind it, leading deeper underground. They followed the passage until they reached a room that smelled of chemicals and rot. Metal tables lined the walls covered in surgical instruments. On one table, a glass tank filled with murky liquid. Inside it floated a white ribbon, delicate, almost luminous. Ayumi whispered the same ribbon Haruka described. Then Kenji saw its footprints fresh, leading toward another exit. They followed the trail to a ladder that climbed upward. At the top, a hatch opened into the basement of an old clinic long abandoned. The nameplate by the door read Natsume Medical Research Institute. Everything came full circle. Inside, they found signs of recent habitation food wrappers, a burner phone, fresh candles. On the wall, a single photograph taped carefully, Kenji Sato standing at Aki Tanaka's memorial site dated 3 days earlier. Beneath it, written in black marker, She chose you. Ayumi looked at him. He's watching us. Kenji clenched his fists. No, he's watching me. They retrieved the burner phone and traced the last call. It led to a prepaid number activated near Ueno Park. Surveillance from nearby cameras captured a man in a hood, wearing a white coat beneath his jacket, carrying a black umbrella. His face was partially visible, gaunt, pale, unmistakably Natsume. But something about him looked wrong. Older, yes, but not as old as he should be. By all logic, he'd be in his 50s now. This man looked barely 40. How Ayumi muttered. Kenji stared at the grainy footage. Maybe he found a way to live through others. Maybe that's what he meant by transfer. That night, Kenji returned home for the first time in days. He sat alone listening to the rain hammer the window and opened his drawer. Inside was a photo of Aki, the one taken at the station, and beside it, a photo of Reina. The resemblance was uncanny, not just similar, identical down to the faint scar above the right eyebrow. He grabbed the files again, checking birth records. Reina Kondo, born July 1995. Aki Tanaka disappeared May 1995, 2 months apart. He froze. Reina's mother, Mina Kondo, had worked at the same hospital where Aki's mother was employed, both in pediatrics, both under the supervision of one-man doctor, Ryohei Natsume. Kenji whispered he replaced her. He didn't kill Aki, he recreated her. Ayumi called minutes later. Her voice was shaking. We found something else. The DNA from the white ribbon, it's a mix. Part Aki, part Reina, he's merging them. Kenji didn't respond. He was already moving his mind, spinning faster than reason. He drove straight to the hospital archives, breaking every regulation in the book. The records were digital now, but deep in the storage room. The old files still existed, yellow folders, handwritten notes, transfer papers. He found what he was looking for. Patient file 0017, Tanaka Aki. The last entry read, discharged, transferred to private facility under Dr. R. Natsume. Date May 11th, 1995, the night she disappeared. His breath caught. She never left the hospital, he whispered. Behind him a shadow moved, a voice soft calm. You're late, detective. He turned. At the far end of the corridor stood a man in a white coat, face half hidden in darkness. His eyes gleamed with a strange serenity. You kept her alive, Natsume said quietly. All these years in your mind. You're the one who never let her go. Kenji's hand went to his gun. Where's Reina? Natsume smiled. You'll see her soon. She remembers you. And then the lights went out. Only the faint echo of footsteps remained fading into the dark hallways of the hospital. Kenji ran after the sound heart-pounding flashlight slicing through the blackness. But when he reached the stairwell, all that remained was the white coat draped neatly over the railing, still warm. On the inside pocket, a folded note, transfer complete. And beneath that, a single hair-long dark, unmistakably Iki's. The hospital corridors were silent now, emptied of patients' lights dimmed to maintenance mode. Kenji stood motionless beneath the flickering ceiling lamp holding the white coat, as if it were a relic of the dead. The note still trembled in his hand. Transfer complete. He read it again and again, but the meaning refused to settle. Was it symbolic, or had Natsume really done something unspeakable? Ayumi arrived minutes later, breathless from running through the storm. She saw the look in his eyes and said nothing. Only the echo of the rain against the glass filled the space between them. They examined the coat in silence. In the inside pocket behind the folded note was a thin plastic tag with faded letters, NMR Project, Unit 07. It looked like a lab identifier, the kind used in classified research. Ayumi took a photo. NMR could stand for Natsume, memory reconstruction. Her voice cracked. He's documenting it like an experiment. Kenji's voice was low. Then we find Unit 07. They checked the hospital's basement records. Among the old maintenance blueprints, Ayumi found a sealed-level subfloor B3, decommissioned after a gas leak in 1996. Officially sealed. Unofficially forgotten. No one had been down there in nearly 30 years. But the access code still existed. She typed it in. The elevator groaned, lights flickering as if waking from a decades-long sleep. When the doors opened, a wave of cold air hit them. The floor smelled of dust and disinfectant. Their flashlights cut through the dark, revealing rows of rusted equipment, oxygen tanks, broken beds. And then, deeper inside, a heavy steel door marked with peeling paint, Unit 07, restricted access. Ayumi steadied her breath. This is it. Kenji pushed the door open. Inside was a small lab, perfectly preserved, untouched by time. Computers from the 1990s lined the walls, their screens dead but still intact. Glass containers filled with preserved tissues stood on a counter, labels written in neat handwriting at MWN, the initials of his victims: Aki Tanaka, Miyu Watanabe, Emi Natsume. The air grew colder. On the central table lay a metal case. Inside, a tangle of electrodes, headgear, and small data disks labeled with dates. The most recent read, Reina Kondo 2025. Ayumi's hands trembled. He recorded everything. They connected the disc to a portable reader. The screen flickered, revealing grainy footage, a girl in a chair, eyes closed, murmuring softly, Reina. Her voice faint but clear. Where am I? Then another voice replied, calm, measured, unmistakably, Natsume. You're home, Aki. Reina's eyes opened, confusion giving way to horror. Who's Aki? Natsume's tone softened. You are. You've always been. Kenji turned away. It felt wrong to watch, yet impossible to stop. The footage showed her pleading, crying, shaking until the screen went black. The last line of audio was his whisper, "She remembers." Ayumi closed the reader. "We need to find her, now." They alerted every unit in Tokyo, roadblocks, train stations, hospitals. But Natsume was always one step ahead. That night, while the city searched, a new video appeared anonymously online, a 30-second clip posted to a hidden forum titled "Memory Lives." The clip showed Reina standing in front of a camera, her voice calm, almost mechanical. "My name is Aki Tanaka. I've come home." The video ended abruptly. Kenji watched it in silence, every second slicing deeper. The file's metadata traced back to a Wi-Fi signal near Kanda River. When the police raided the location, all they found was a tripod, a camera, and a mirror leaning against the wall. On the mirror, words written in red marker. "Identity restored." Ayumi whispered, "He's turning her into Aki." The next day, the psychological unit released a profile Natsume's delusion had evolved. He no longer sought to resurrect his sister, he sought to recreate her memory inside others. To him, identity was fluid, transferable. If the vessel remembered, the soul lived on. Kenji refused to sit still. He returned to the evidence lab, staring at the diary again. Something had always bothered him, the handwriting. It wasn't entirely consistent. Early entries were rounded teenage-like. Later ones were sharper, more precise. Two distinct writing patterns. He enlarged the scans on screen. The last few pages, the warnings, the fear, the line about the man in the white coat were written by someone older. Someone copying Aki's handwriting. "Ayumi," he said slowly, "what if the diary wasn't written by Aki?" She frowned. "Then who?" He turned the pages, stopping at one ink blot where faint letters bled through from the next sheet. Under the right light, new text appeared invisible before. It read, "She let me in. She asked me to remember her." Kenji exhaled sharply. "It's not a diary, it's a transcript." That realization cracked everything open. The diary wasn't a girl's last confession. It was Natsume's record of the experiment, his proof that memory could merge. He must have planted it intentionally decades later to reopen the case and relive the ritual. Ayumi backed away pale. He wanted us to find it. He wanted to finish the process. "Through Reina," Kenji said quietly. The storm outside turned violent thunder, rolling through the city like a heartbeat. They followed a new lead, a tip from a janitor who'd seen a man in white near an abandoned subway tunnel connected to the old Ohanomizu line. Police units surrounded the entrance at midnight. Kenji and Ayumi led the descent. The tunnel was long and damp, littered with broken glass and graffiti. Their flashlights caught movement, a shadow vanishing behind a pillar. Then a voice echoed, calm and distant. "You came alone, detective." Natsume Kenji shouted, gun raised. "Step out where I can see you." Footsteps approached slowly. The man emerged from the dark face, gaunt eyes, fever bright, his white coat drenched with rain. But what unsettled Kenji most was the expression. Not madness. Serenity. "You can't arrest memory," Natsume said softly. "It doesn't die." "Where's Reina?" He smiled faintly. "She's with you." Before Kenji could react, the girl stepped from the shadows behind him, Reina pale, trembling, but with an eerie calm in her eyes. "It's all right," she whispered. "He showed me." Ayumi moved forward cautiously. "Reina, listen to me. You're safe now." But Reina shook her head. "I'm not Reina." Her voice faltered. "I remember the rain, the train station, the man in the white coat. I remember dying." Kenji froze. Her tone, her phrasing it, was identical to Aki's diary. Natsume looked almost proud. "See, the transfer is complete. Whatever you did to her, I freed her." His voice broke through the tunnel, echoing off concrete. "You call it madness, but memory is a body too. I built her again. You couldn't save her then, detective, so I did." Kenji stepped closer, gun trembling in his hand. "You didn't save her. You murdered her twice." For the first time, something flickered in Natsume's eyes. Guilt, or maybe triumph. He reached into his coat pocket slowly and pulled out a small vial of clear liquid. "You can't stop memory," he said again. "It only needs another host." Before they could react, he smashed the vial against the ground. The liquid hissed as it vaporized into the air. Ayumi shouted for the team to fall back, but in the confusion, Natsume ran deeper into the tunnel, vanishing into the dark. Kenji coughed, eyes stinging. Reina. She collapsed to her knees, trembling violently. When Ayumi reached her, the girl looked up. Her eyes, unfocused, voice, distant. I remember the sound of the train. And you, detective. You said you'd find me. Kenji's heart stopped. It wasn't Reina speaking anymore. It was Aki's words, the exact ones from her missing tape transcript in 1995. He whispered Aki. The girl blinked, tears falling down her cheeks. You came back. Ayumi pulled him back. Kenji stopped, she's in shock. But he couldn't move. He just stared at the girl's face. A face now caught between two timelines, two souls. Reina and Aki fused by obsession. The rescue team carried her out of the tunnel. She was hospitalized, immediately sedated under observation. Doctors couldn't explain her condition. Her brain scans showed unusual patterns of memory reactivation areas lighting up, as if recalling experiences that weren't hers. The next morning, when Kenji visited her room, she was awake, sitting upright, calm. Do you remember me? He asked quietly. She smiled faintly. Of course I do. You found the diary. He stepped closer, his chest tightening. Who am I talking to right now? She tilted her head. Aki. Or maybe Reina. Does it matter? Outside, Tokyo was waking up again, unaware that beneath its neon pulse the past had found a way to live again. Rain pressed against the windows of the hospital like fingers drumming from the outside. Tokyo's skyline was buried in fog, and the city felt smaller somehow, as if it too were holding its breath. Kenji sat in the dim hospital corridor, staring through the narrow window of Reina's room. She hadn't spoken since dawn. The doctors called it dissociative amnesia, but he knew it was something else, a tug-of-war between two minds that shouldn't coexist. Ayumi walked in quietly, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She's stable, she whispered. Vitals normal. Brain activity off the charts. Kenji nodded, but didn't drink. He did something to her. Something beyond hypnosis or drugs. He's inside her somehow. Ayumi looked at him carefully. Or she's inside him. You saw the vapor in the tunnel. Maybe it wasn't poison. Maybe it was data memory particles or whatever his twisted science created. Kenji rubbed his temples. We've seen madness, Ayumi, but this feels like religion. He believed memory could live forever. They entered the room. Reina sat by the window, sunlight cutting across her face. She turned to them slowly, her expression gentle but unfamiliar. It's a beautiful morning, she said. Her tone was wrong, older, calmer, like someone who'd seen too much. Do you know what day it is? Kenji asked. She smiled faintly. May 11th, the day I disappeared. The room went silent. That date was burned into every file, every report, every memory of Aki Tanaka. Ayumi tried to hide her reaction, but Reina noticed. You don't have to be afraid, she said softly. He showed me everything. The rain, the train, the darkness. It's all still there. Kenji leaned forward. Where is Natsume? Her eyes darkened. He's gone. But he's not gone. He left pieces of himself everywhere. You just have to remember. Ayumi stepped closer, careful. Reina, listen. You're safe now. You're not Aki. I'm both? She interrupted gently. I can feel her heartbeat. It's slower than mine, but it's there. The doctors later described her condition as dual personality emergence. But to Kenji, it felt like something deeper, a living bridge between past and present. He'd seen enough to know that science could mimic miracles. What haunted him was the thought that maybe for a second, Natsume had succeeded. That evening, the hospital's surveillance cameras glitched again. The footage showed Reina asleep in her bed, then for 3 seconds a shadow beside her, tall, white-coated, unmoving. When the lights flickered back, the shadow was gone. Security found no one. But on her nightstand, a folded note had appeared. Memory is migration. Kenji called Ayumi immediately. He's still here. They pulled all access logs. No intrusions, no visitors, no physical entry. It was as if the message had appeared out of air, and yet the handwriting was undeniably Natsume's looping clinical perfect. 2 days later, another incident. A morgue technician in the hospital basement reported hearing voices from one of the old storage rooms. When he opened the door, a projector flickered to life, showing footage from 1995 Aki Tanaka laughing at school, spinning in the sunlight. The film reel had never been catalogued. The technician quit the next morning. Kenji returned to the archives himself. He watched the film alone. The laughter on screen was real, innocent, untainted by what came after. But halfway through the image, blurred colors bleeding into one another, forming a face Natsume's. His mouth moved, whispering something too quiet to hear. Then the film burned out. Ayumi found him hours later, still staring at the smoke curling from the projector. "You think he planned all this?" she asked softly. Kenji's voice was distant. "He's turning memory into evidence, into presence." That night, Tokyo police received a call from a fisherman on the Sumida River. He'd pulled a suitcase from the water. Inside was a body, male, early 50s, decayed but intact enough for identification. DNA confirmed it, Ryohei Natsume. The news hit like thunder. Ayumi read the report twice. "That's impossible. We saw him 2 days ago." The coroner estimated time of death between 7 and 10 days earlier, before the tunnel encounter, and before the hospital intrusion, before the new diary surfaced. Kenji stared at the autopsy photo. The face was pale, lips curled faintly in what looked like a smile. His fingers were folded neatly over his chest as if placed with care. On the wrist, faint marks, surgical sutures recent. Ayumi whispered, "Someone preserved him." Kenji's hands shook slightly. Then who was in the tunnel? They ordered another forensic sweep of the underground chamber. This time they found something missed before a hidden compartment behind the shrine wall. Inside a refrigerated container, modern, portable. It held blood samples, vials labeled with codes. One label read NMR/continuation host 02. Kenji stared. Host 02. That means there was a host 01. Ayumi scanned the dates. The first sample was from 1995, the second from last month. The DNA pattern was identical except for one variation, mitochondrial markers consistent with a female donor. Reina Kondo. The implications were horrifying. Ayumi whispered, "He didn't transfer memory into her. He transferred himself." Kenji felt the air leave his lungs. "You're saying Natsume's mind is inside her body," Ayumi finished. They ran to the hospital. Reina was gone. Her room was empty. The window-open curtains flapping in the wind. On the bed lay the same ribbon, white with small cherry blossoms. Next to it, a photo of Kenji and Aki from the original case file printed from nowhere. On the back, a note. "Detective, thank you for remembering me." The security footage showed her walking calmly through the lobby at dawn wearing a long white coat. No one stopped her. No one thought to. To them, she looked like any other doctor leaving after a night shift. Tokyo went on alert. Her face was plastered across every station. But Kenji couldn't bring himself to call her a suspect. To him, she was both victim and vessel, a girl possessed by a man who refused to die. That night, he sat in his apartment surrounded by files, photos, pieces of the past. He played the old cassette again, the one with Natsume's voice. But this time, something new came through, faint beneath the static. A second voice. A girl's whisper. "Help me!" He replayed it a dozen times. It was unmistakable. Aki. Kenji leaned back, eyes wide. The plea hadn't been there before. Somehow it had appeared now, as if triggered by the investigation itself. Ayumi arrived minutes later, pale and breathless. "Kenji, you need to see this." She opened her laptop and played a new video posted online, a live stream titled Rebirth Protocol. The camera showed a dimly lit room. In the center, a woman sat with electrodes on her head. Reina. Her expression, blank eyes half closed. A man's voice off-screen guided her. "Remember who you were." "I am Iki Tanaka," she murmured. "Good. And who am I?" "You're me." Kenji shouted, "Trace it." Ayumi's fingers flew over the keyboard. The signal bounced across multiple servers, but one IP pinged local, an abandoned research facility in Odaiba, the same company once funding Natsume's experiments. They mobilized instantly. Sirens screamed through the city as they raced toward the bay. The facility loomed against the night windows, shattered water slapping the docks below. Inside, the corridors were filled with old lab equipment wires and the smell of ozone. the live stream still ran broadcasting from the main control room. Raina sat connected to a console surrounded by flickering screens showing brainwave data. Beside her, a monitor displayed two silhouettes, one male, one female, overlapping. Kenji moved in slowly. Raina, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open. You shouldn't be here. Ayumi disconnected the cables. We're ending this. The speakers crackled. A voice filled the room, distorted but unmistakable. End memory doesn't end, detective. It expands. The lights flickered, and for a moment, every monitor showed Natsume's face grainy, almost digital, like a presence embedded in the circuitry. You can't kill an idea, the voice said. You can only join it. Kenji aimed his gun at the console. You died, Natsume. Bodies die. Memory migrates. Then the screens went black. Reina gasped, convulsing violently as alarms screamed. Kenji ripped off the electrodes, lifting her out of the chair. Stay with me, he shouted. She whispered something barely audible, a single line that chilled him to the core. He's still inside. And then everything went dark. When the backup generators restored power minutes later, the console was destroyed. Sparks hissing. Reina lay unconscious but breathing. The monitors displayed one final message in white text: Cycle 03 initiated. Kenji stared at it, frozen. Cycle 3. Ayumi whispered, that means there's another host. Outside, dawn broke over the bay, washing the city in pale light. Tokyo was awake again, but somewhere in the quiet hum of the servers still running beneath the lab floor, a faint voice whispered through the static. Remember me. Tokyo didn't sleep that morning. News helicopters circled the bay as police sealed the Odaiba facility, reporters shouting over each other about a living experiment, a ghost in the network, the Tokyo cold case reborn. Kenji ignored all of it. He watched from behind the barricade as Reina was carried into an ambulance, her eyes, half-open lips moving without sound. Ayumi climbed in beside her, pressing an oxygen mask over her face. For a brief second, Reina looked directly at Kenji through the glass and mouthed a word he couldn't hear, but he could read it. Remember. The door slammed, the sirens wailed, and the ambulance disappeared into the wet glare of morning traffic. Inside the wrecked lab, investigators worked in silence. Most of the computers were fried from the electrical surge, but a few drives had survived. Kenji walked among them like a man visiting a graveyard. Every desk bore the same mark scratched into the metal. 3 slashes across a circle. The symbol again repeated, like a mantra. One technician pointed at a still intact terminal. This one's live. On the monitor, a single file pulsed red. It was titled cycle03_init.log. Kenji opened it. Lines of code streamed down, but in between the data words appeared in plain text: transfer successful. New host located. Cycle progression 78%. Beneath it, GPS coordinates. They traced the signal to a rural town 2 hours north of Tokyo. A medical training center once owned by a biotech company dissolved in the late 1990s. The property had recently been leased by a private research group under an alias, Emmy Project, Limited. The name struck Kenji like a hammer. Emmy Natsume's sister. The obsession had metastasized into a corporation. By evening, they were on the road rain chasing the sirens. The countryside blurred into a gray river of asphalt. Ayumi sat in silence, studying the recovered files on her laptop. He built a network, she murmured. Every experiment labeled by Cycle 1 per decade, 1995, 2005, 2015, and now 2025. It's like he's evolving through each host. Kenji gripped the steering wheel tighter. If this is Cycle 03, there's at least 2 others out there. When they reached the facility, it was dark, windows boarded up, only a faint light glowing from inside. They moved in quietly. The first floor was empty, filled with dust and old posters of anatomy charts. The smell of metal and bleach lingered. In the center of the hall stood a single operating chair beneath a hanging bulb. On the wall, a message painted in red. She remembers everything. A sound came from the corridor, a low hum, electrical. Ayumi followed it to a small control room. Monitors flickered, showing security feeds from around the building. In one of them, a figure walked through a hallway carrying a medical case. White coat, mask, slender frame. not Natsume. A woman. Kenji's voice was steady. He found another disciple. They tracked her to the lower level. The air was cold, the hum louder now. The woman moved like someone half asleep, deliberate but vacant. When she turned toward them, Kenji froze. It was Reina. Or what used to be her. Her skin-pale eyes, empty, movements mechanical. She carried the same case labeled Host 03 active. Ayumi stepped forward cautiously. Reina, it's me. You're safe now. Reina's head tilted slightly as if listening to a distant voice. Then she spoke, but it wasn't her tone. It was his. Calm, deliberate, echoing from her mouth with perfect clarity. Detective Sato, you never understood the experiment. I didn't want immortality. I wanted memory without decay. Kenji's chest tightened. Natsume. The voice smiled through her. You destroyed the lab, but the code lives in her blood. I only need one more host. Ayumi whispered, he's replicating himself through DNA. Kenji stepped closer, gun lowered. Reina, fight him. You're stronger than this. Her eyes flickered. I'm both. I'm the memory and the vessel. She reached into the case and pulled out a syringe filled with a clear, pulsing liquid. The final cycle completes when memory accepts memory. Ayumi lunged forward, grabbing her arm. The syringe shattered against the floor. Liquid hissed on contact with air, releasing a metallic scent. Reina screamed a raw human sound and collapsed. Monitors exploded with static. Every light in the facility died at once. Darkness swallowed everything. Kenji shouted her name, but only the sound of rain leaking through the roof answered. Ayumi found a flashlight. In the beam, Reina lay motionless, blood trickling from her nose. Her pulse was faint but steady. They carried her outside into the storm, loading her into the car. Behind them, the facility erupted in fire, the chemical vapor igniting spontaneously. By the time they reached Tokyo, dawn was rising again, pink light breaking through the haze. Reina was transferred to a secure medical wing. She slept for 12 hours straight. Kenji sat by her bedside the entire time. When she finally opened her eyes, they were clear. No trace of that haunting calm. No whisper of his voice. Just exhaustion. Is he gone? She asked weakly. Kenji nodded. For now. But later, when the doctors drew her blood, Ayumi noticed something strange. The sample shimmered faintly under ultraviolet light as if carrying microscopic filaments. The lab tech frowned. That's impossible. The filaments formed the symbol 3 slashes over a circle, burned into her cells. Meanwhile, the coordinates from the Cycle 03 file kept transmitting every 12 hours, always from a different location. It was as if the signal was alive, moving. When traced, the pattern formed a spiral around Tokyo Bay, tightening with each pulse. The final ping pointed directly to the hospital itself. Kenji stood on the roof that night, phone in hand, watching the rain sweep over the city. His screen flashed one last message from the encrypted server: cycle complete. Cycle 4 begins. Then it went dark. Down below, Reina stirred in her sleep. Her heart monitor beeped steadily, rhythm normal. But in her dream, she was standing on a train platform, again, rain falling softly. Across the tracks, a man in a white coat smiled and waved. She tried to call out, but no sound came. When she looked down, she was wearing Aki's uniform. The train lights approached, blinding white, and just before the impact, she whispered, I remember. Kenji jolted awake in his chair beside her. The monitor had flatlined for 3 seconds before returning to normal. He looked at her face, peaceful, serene, the faintest smile playing on her lips. And for a moment, he swore he heard 2 heartbeats instead of 1. Outside, Tokyo was glowing with neon again, as if nothing had happened. But somewhere deep within the city's data centers, among backup files and archived medical records, a new entry had been created automatically at the exact same time her pulse returned. The file name was simple, chilling, inevitable. Cycle04_init.log, and in the code 1 sentence in plain text, host located Sato Kenji. The rain fell harder. The rain didn't stop for 3 days. It washed over Tokyo like a ritual cleansing that never quite worked, turning the streets into mirrors of flickering neon and the air into mist that swallowed everything. Detective Kenji Sato barely slept. He moved through the precinct like a ghost, replaying the same thought over and over, cycle 04_init.log. The file had appeared on a closed network, yet it contained his name, host located. That meant whatever Natsume had built, whatever memory web he'd unleashed, it wasn't finished. It had simply moved on into him. He hadn't told Ayumi yet. She was still at the hospital overseeing Reina's recovery. Reina was stable, her vitals perfect, her mind quiet. Too quiet. The doctor said her brain activity had normalized, but Kenji knew the rhythm of silence that follows trauma. It wasn't peace. It was waiting. He sat in his car outside the precinct, rain streaking across the windshield, laptop open on the dashboard. He'd copied the Cycle 04 file before it disappeared. Now, under the glow of the screen, he scrolled through its contents, strings of numbers, genetic markers, timestamps. Then, between two lines of code, a new message flickered for a fraction of a second. Transfer threshold approaching 62%. He blinked. When he looked again, it was gone. At that moment, the phone rang. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Detective, a voice whispered. You don't have much time. It was Reina. Her voice trembled, but carried a strange calm beneath the fear. They're calling it a dream, but it's not. He's talking to me again. He says you opened the next door. Kenji's pulse quickened. Reina, where are you? In the hospital. But it's not the same room anymore. I can hear the machines humming in his voice. He's here. The line went dead. Kenji was already driving before logic could stop him. The hospital corridors were half lit, the air sharp with antiseptic and rain. Reina's room door was open, the bed empty, the sheets folded neatly. On the pillow lay another ribbon, white embroidered with 3 slashes. Ayumi appeared from the elevator, pale and breathless. She's gone. 15 minutes ago, the cameras glitched again. Same interference as before. We checked the exits, nothing. Kenji clenched his jaw. He's inside the system now. He doesn't need doors. They headed for the security control room. The chief technician replayed the feed from Reina's floor. The video froze, skipped, then displayed a static-filled frame of Kenji himself standing in her doorway, only he hadn't been there. The timestamp was from 5 minutes earlier. Ayumi stared at the screen. Kenji, that's... I know. The technician backed away slowly. Sir, is this some kind of prank? Kenji didn't answer. He leaned closer, studying the image. The version of him on screen turned towards the camera and smiled faintly. Then the frame distorted the pixels, breaking apart into white noise. Ayumi whispered, It's a projection of you, a digital host. He exhaled sharply. Or something using my pattern. Back at headquarters, he ordered every archived file on Natsume, cross-referenced with his own case notes. The results made no sense. Several of his reports from the 1990s now contained paragraphs he'd never written, sentences in a tone that wasn't his. Memory survives contact. We are the continuation. The metadata showed modification dates from 2025, the same week Natsume's network had reactivated. The walls felt closer suddenly, the lights harsher. Ayumi touched his arm gently. Kenji, you need rest. He looked at her eyes, hollow. If I sleep, maybe I won't wake up as myself. That night, he drove to Aki Tanaka's old neighborhood. The street was barely changed, the same narrow alley, the same flickering streetlight over the drain where they'd found her shoe 30 years ago. He stood there in the drizzle, watching the light tremble, half expecting to hear her voice. Instead, a sound came from behind him, footsteps. He turned. A young girl stood there, maybe 17, her uniform-soaked hair plastered to her face. She looked exactly like Aki. Kenji froze. Who are you? She tilted her head. You don't remember me. He stepped closer, heart pounding. Aki, she smiled sadly. You keep calling me that, but I think I'm someone else now. Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the rain. He stood there for a long time, unable to move until his phone buzzed again. A new message. No number. Just text. Cycle 04 complete. Cycle 05 initializing. And attached a file name Reina_audio.log. He opened it. Reina's voice filled the car speakers. Detective Sato, if you hear this, I'm sorry. I think he's using you the way he used me. Every time you remember her, you give him space to grow. Stop remembering. Static swallowed the rest. Kenji slammed the laptop shut. The rain outside blurred everything. He realized suddenly what the experiment really was. Not a resurrection, but replication. Memory didn't move between people. It multiplied. Every recollection, every retelling gave it form. By remembering Aki, by chasing her ghost, he had become part of Natsume's mechanism. He whispered to the empty car, "You clever bastard." When he returned to the precinct the next morning, Ayumi was waiting. She looked terrified. "Kenji, I checked the blood work from last week. Your sample, it shows the same filaments as Reina's." He went silent. She continued, voice shaking. "They're growing. Fast." He stared at his hands. The faintest shimmer traced beneath the skin like static lightning. "He wasn't trying to become immortal," Kenji murmured. "He was trying to spread. To exist in every memory of himself. Viral consciousness." That night, Kenji filed an official report to Internal Affairs labeling the case as closed. But he didn't go home. Instead, he drove back to the Shinjuku station where it all began. He walked onto the platform, same hour, same rain 30 years later. The digital display blinked 23:43, the same timestamp on Aki's last sighting. He stood there, the smell of steel and water thick in the air, until he heard it a faint echo through the tunnel. A voice. A whisper. "Detective." He turned slowly. Reina stood at the far end of the platform, barefoot, her hospital gown clinging to her. Behind her, the tunnel shimmered with a dull white glow. "You can't stop it," she said softly. "It's in both of us now." He took a step forward. "Reina, listen to me. You're not him. You can fight it." She smiled. "I already did. That's why I came to say goodbye." And then she stepped backward into the tunnel, swallowed by the light. Kenji ran after her, shouting her name, but the tunnel was empty. No sound. No trace, only the echo of his own voice. When he turned back, the platform was deserted. The station clocks had stopped. The next morning, commuters found a police badge lying on the rails. It was his. The official report stated that Detective Kenji Sato had gone missing during an unauthorized investigation. No witnesses, no camera footage. The case was archived under unsolved disappearances, but a week later, Ayumi received a package with no return address. Inside was a single USB drive labeled cycle05_init.log. She hesitated before plugging it in. The screen lit up with a video Kenji sitting in a dark room, eyes calm, voice steady. "If you're watching this, it means I couldn't stop it. I don't know what I am anymore. But I remember everything. Maybe that's what it wanted all along, to be remembered." He looked directly into the camera, his eyes faintly reflecting static. "Don't forget me." The file ended there. But in the final frame, frozen in pixelation, the faint outline of another figure appeared behind him, a man in a white coat, smiling. The world moved on, but Tokyo never forgot. The story of Detective Kenji Sato vanished quietly from the headlines, buried under newer crimes and scandals, but within the precinct walls, his name lingered like a curse. Files disappeared, recordings, corrupted servers wiped clean without authorization. Every attempt to reconstruct the case met the same result: data erasing itself, leaving only fragments. 3 slashes through a circle burned into the code. By 2026, the investigation was officially terminated. The case was labeled unsolved. But Ayumi Morita never stopped. She couldn't. She kept a private archive, a hidden vault of every document she'd saved before the purge: photos, medical scans, the diaries, even Kenji's final video. She watched it countless times, searching for something she'd missed. His last words echoed in her mind. "Don't forget me." And that's what haunted her most. Because she didn't forget. She couldn't. Every few weeks, small things would happen. Her laptop freezing on a white screen, her phone camera activating by itself. The faint image of a man's silhouette reflected in dark glass. At first, she blamed exhaustion. But then the files began changing again. The icon of her desktop folder, a circle with 3 slashes, appeared one morning without her creating it. When she opened it, a new file sat inside cycle06_init.log. Her heart stopped. She stared at the screen, afraid to touch it. But curiosity, or maybe guilt, won. The file opened into text, not code, not data, but words. Detective Morita, thank you for remembering. The memory requires witnesses. You are next. She slammed the laptop shut. The lights flickered in her apartment. The hum of her refrigerator changed pitch like static whispering under electricity. When she unplugged it, the sound continued. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she drove to the river where Natsume's body had been found. It was quiet now, gray water sliding under the bridge. She threw the laptop into the current and watched it sink. No more, she whispered. But 2 nights later, a knock came at her door. When she opened it, no one was there. Only a small package wrapped in brown paper. Inside a single item, a cassette tape labeled in familiar handwriting. Aki Tanaka last session. She didn't own a cassette player anymore, so she drove to the precinct archives where old evidence machines still worked. She threaded the tape carefully, heart-pounding, and pressed play. First silence, then faint breathing. My name is Aki Tanaka, a girl's voice said softly. This is my last recording. He says I'll forget myself soon, but he'll remember for me. Then the sound of another voicemail, calm, deliberate. Memory is safety, Aki. When you're gone, I'll keep you alive in someone else. The tape hissed, then ended. Ayumi sat frozen. The date stamped on the label May 11th, 1995. She rewound it again, this time focusing on the background noise. Their faint but distinct metronome ticking. She recognized it instantly, the same kind used in hypnosis therapy. She went back through the old files and found a list of equipment requisitions from Natsume's lab. One item stood out. Metronome Model K4 serial number 00321. She cross-referenced the number. It matched an auction record from 6 months ago the buyer listed as Reina Kondo. It didn't make sense. Reina was gone, presumed dead after the Shinjuku incident, but the payment trail was real bank records, time-stamped photos from a courier. Someone using her identity had bought the exact same metronome that started it all. Ayumi felt the ground tilt beneath her. He's not gone, she whispered. He's moving through names now. She went to the hospital where Reina had been treated, demanding access to the security archives. The head of administration, an older man, shook his head. All records were wiped during the cyber attack last year. What cyber attack? The one that started with your badge ID? He said quietly. Ayumi froze. When she checked, it was true. The breach that had erased the case files had originated from her own login, her credentials, her location. But she hadn't been near a terminal that day. Someone or something had used her identity as an access key. That night, she dreamed of the lab again. The smell of metal, the sound of dripping water, the flicker of fluorescent light. She saw Kenji standing beside the chair, his back turned. You shouldn't have remembered, he said softly. When he turned around, his eyes were white. She woke up, gasping, her phone vibrating beside her. A notification. One new voicemail, unknown number. She played it. Ayumi, it's me, the voice said. Calm, measured, unmistakably Kenji's. I think I found where it ends. Static, then coordinates. Somewhere deep in the mountains near Nikko. She knew it was impossible, but she went anyway. The road wound through mist and pine trees, leading to a derelict facility covered in moss, a mirror of Natsume's first lab. Inside, the same symbol marked the walls, drawn in what looked like rust or blood. In the center of the main room stood a computer terminal still running on emergency power. The screen displayed a single prompt, Welcome back, Detective Morita. She typed, hands shaking. Where is Kenji? The response appeared immediately. Everywhere you remembered him. Then the lights flickered. The monitor showed a live camera feed the river where she'd thrown her laptop days ago. The water rippled and something surfaced. A figure, slowly rising, face half submerged. Kenji. Ayumi stumbled back, heart hammering. The feed zoomed closer until his eyes filled the frame. You shouldn't have come, he whispered. Cycle 6 needs a new witness. The monitor shattered. The entire facility went dark. She ran for the exit, her flashlight cutting through the fog, breath ragged. When she reached her car, the windshield was covered in condensation, words drawn by an unseen hand. Remember me. She drove through the night without direction, the road stretching endlessly through mist and rain. When dawn broke, she realized she wasn't heading back to Tokyo. Her GPS kept rerouting itself toward the same coordinates, Aki Tanaka's old school. The building was abandoned now, scheduled for demolition. She parked outside, stepping into silence. The hallways smelled of dust and rain. Children's drawings still clung to the walls, faded with time. And there, in the center of the main classroom, stood a desk with something carved into it, 3 slashes through a circle. Beneath it, the words, "For Detective Morita, so you'll remember too." She turned slowly. At the doorway stood a man, tall coat, soaked eyes, gentle and empty at once. Kenji. Her voice cracked. "You're not real." He stepped closer. "Neither are memories, but we keep them anyway." She backed away. "You're dead." He smiled faintly. "Dead things don't remember. That's why he needed us." The walls began to hum low and mechanical as lights flickered above. She realized the entire building was wired, every outlet, every speaker. The sound grew into a rhythm, the ticking of a metronome. Kenji's voice layered over it, calm and rhythmic. "Inhale, exhale, remember." Ayumi's knees buckled. The air vibrated, the floor rippling like water. Faces flickered across the walls. Aki, Reina, Natsume, Kenji merging, separating, repeating in endless loops. She screamed, "Stop!" The ticking stopped. Silence. Then a whisper. "You already did." When she opened her eyes again, she was sitting in a hospital bed. The calendar read, May 11th, 2026. A doctor stood beside her, clipboard in hand. "You've been unconscious for 2 days," he said kindly. "You were found in the ruins of the old school. You're lucky to be alive." She nodded slowly. "Was anyone else there?" He frowned. "No one. But we did find something strange in your hand." He held up a small cassette tape labeled Detective Ayumi Morita, first session. Her throat went dry. "What? What's on it?" He smiled gently. "You can tell us. You recorded it." Her heart stopped. Outside, the city lights flickered once, as if the power grid itself remembered something it shouldn't. Somewhere deep in the network, a new file appeared. Cycle 07_init.log, and beneath it, a line of text. Host located Morita Ayumi. The sound of a metronome began to play faintly through the hospital speakers. Tick, tick, tick. The hospital tried to return to routine, but nothing felt routine anymore. Nurses whispered about lights flickering in empty rooms, about monitors that kept resetting themselves to 11:45 p.m. The moment Aki Tanaka vanished 31 years earlier. Ayumi Morita watched from her bed as the city shimmered beyond the window. Tokyo neon bleeding into the clouds. Every sound reminded her of that metronome. Tick, tick, tick. She told herself it was only the IV pump, only the pulse of the building. But deep inside, she knew the sound wasn't outside her. It was inside. When the doctors discharged her, she signed the papers with a trembling hand. Her name looked wrong on the page. The letters too perfect. The slashes between strokes slightly angled the same way Natsume wrote. She stared at the signature until the ink bled. The attending physician smiled politely, unaware that the act of writing had felt like letting someone else guide her hand. Outside, the rain had stopped. For the first time in weeks, the air smelled clean. She tried to breathe it in to feel human again. But as she passed the parking lot mirror, her reflection lagged behind for half a second before catching up. She froze. When she looked again, everything was normal. Back in her apartment, she locked every door, unplugged every device, and turned her phone face down. The silence was unbearable. She made tea, trying to focus on the sound of boiling water, on the present, on anything that wasn't the ticking. But when she lifted the kettle, condensation on the metal surface had formed 3 faint slashes. She dropped it. The phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Detective Morita," a voice said, gentle, familiar. "How are the headaches?" Her stomach turned. "Who is this?" "You know who. The cycle doesn't end with memory, it ends with surrender." She hung up, heart hammering. But when she checked the call log, there was no record of it. The timestamp showed May 11th again. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out the cassette the doctor had given her. Detective Ayumi Morita, first session. She didn't remember recording anything. She didn't remember therapy at all. Yet the handwriting on the label was undeniably hers. She found an old cassette player, hesitated, and pressed play. Static, then her own voice, calm, detached. Patient 01, date unknown. The subject reports recurring dreams of rain tunnels and a man in a white coat. Memory loops confirmed. She slammed the stop button. Patient 01, she whispered. Who's the doctor? The answer came from the tape itself. Dr. Kenji Sato supervising. Her breath caught. She rewound, played it again, thinking it was distortion. But it was there. Kenji's voice clear measured as if he were alive, conducting a session from somewhere she couldn't reach. Ayumi, do you remember why you volunteered for the experiment? To stop the memory from spreading. And did it work? I don't know who I am anymore. The tape clicked off. She sat in the dark for hours, the sound still echoing in her head. Then softly her apartment lights flickered once. The TV turned itself on screen glowing white. Words appeared in black text cycle 07, progress 41%. Ayumi whispered no. The screen glitched, forming Kenji's face in pixel fragments. You can't delete what you remember. She hurled the remote at the screen, shattering it. Sparks hissed, smoke curling upward, then silence. That night, she drove without direction, following the city's edge until the skyline disappeared behind her. She ended up at Mount Mitake, where the first cabin still stood now, nothing but ash and twisted metal. She walked through the ruins, flashlight trembling in her hand. The air smelled of ozone and decay. Something glittered under the debris. She knelt, brushing away the ash. A small metal badge, her own missing since the hospital incident. But carved into its surface was a phrase that made her stomach twist. Host stabilized. A voice drifted through the trees. You see, you were always part of it. She spun around. Kenji stood among the shadows, rain dripping from his eyes glowing faintly with reflected light. Stop, she said. You're dead. He smiled softly. I'm remembered. That's enough. She stepped back. I buried your file. I deleted everything. You kept the tape, he said. You pressed play. That's all it needs. Lightning split the sky. For a moment, his outline flickered transparent, then solid again. She realized he wasn't standing in the forest. He was being projected through it, lines of code mapping themselves onto the mist. Kenji, listen to me, she said. If any part of you is real, fight it. His expression softened. I tried, but you remembered me too well. Then he lifted his hand. Behind him, the burnt ruins pulsed with faint light, the same circuitry patterns as Natsume's old experiments. From the ground, cables coiled upward, forming shapes, bodies, faces, echoes of everyone the cycle had claimed. Aki, Reina, Natsume, all layered over each other like overlapping film. Ayumi screamed, stumbling backward. Kenji's voice became two voices, then three. The cycle is collective now. Memory without boundary. You can join us. You already have. The ground split open, revealing the remnants of the old underground chamber. The lab beneath the cabin that should have been destroyed. Machines still hummed below, running on power that shouldn't exist. On one of the monitors, Ayumi saw her own face sleeping. The date stamp, tomorrow. She backed away slowly, whispering, this isn't real. Kenji's reflection followed her every movement. Reality is just what the majority remembers. She ran. The rain fell harder, washing ash into rivers. She didn't stop until she reached her car. When she looked in the mirror, the passenger seat was empty. For a second, she almost laughed with relief. Then a voice whispered beside her ear, drive. She looked over. Kenji sat beside her, soaked eyes black with static. She screamed, slamming the door open, falling onto the wet road. When she looked up, the car was empty again, engine idling. The radio crackled. Cycle 07 complete. She smashed the radio with her fist. The noise died. But beneath the thunder, she heard something new. A low hum spreading through the valley. It wasn't the storm. It was electricity flowing through soil, connecting the buried wires of the old lab to the world above. She realized with sudden clarity that the cycles weren't confined to people anymore. The network had merged with Tokyo's power grid, its data centers, its memories stored in every camera, every server, every phone. The city itself was the next host. Back in Tokyo, lights flickered block by block, each outage lasting exactly 3 seconds. People later said it looked like the city was breathing. Ayumi returned to the precinct one last time. The building was dark except for one room, Kenji's old office. Inside, the air smelled of rain and dust. His desk drawer was open, a single sheet of paper inside. 3 slashes, a circle. And below it, written in her own handwriting, cycle, 08_init.log. She laughed, then a short, broken sound. It's already started. On the wall, a digital clock flickered to life by itself. 11:45 p.m., the same frozen minute repeating endlessly. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Detective Morita, the voice said. You're remembering perfectly. She dropped the phone. The sound didn't stop. It came from the walls, the ceiling, the wires. In her final act, she took out her service pistol, aimed it at the computer tower in the corner, the only system still connected to the central server, and fired. Sparks burst, lights died. The entire floor went black. Somewhere deep in the circuitry, a file blinked red before vanishing, cycle 08_init.log. But across the city, in thousands of homes, devices powered themselves on for a brief instant. Screens glowed white. And for those 3 seconds, every monitor, every billboard, every phone displayed the same image, a man in a white coat, smiling gently as if relieved to be remembered at last. The rain finally stopped. For the first time in months, Tokyo's sky was clear, a pale silver washed clean of smoke. But the silence that followed wasn't peace, it was an aftershock. In the weeks since the blackout, the city behaved like a patient waking from anesthesia. Lights flickered randomly. Data vanished, memories blurred. People forgot names, addresses, faces. Servers crashed and rebooted with no human command. Journalists called it a cyber anomaly. Scientists called it mass interference. But those who had seen the files, those who had worked with Detective Ayumi Morita, knew the truth could never be printed. The official story was simple. Morita, last surviving investigator of the Tokyo 1995 case, died in an explosion at the precinct caused by a power surge. Her body was never recovered. The report ended there. Closed. Final. But finality was an illusion in this story. Because on the night of the explosion, one more file appeared across multiple government databases, duplicated in perfect sync, timestamp to the exact millisecond of the blast. The file name was ordinary, cycle 09_init.log. In a quiet corner of the city, in a small Shibuya bookstore, the same one where a diary had once resurfaced 30 years earlier, the shopkeeper unlocked his doors at dawn. The power had returned overnight. He found something waiting on the counter, a box small and wooden, unmarked. Inside it, wrapped in newspaper, lay a new leather-bound diary. The first line read, "If something happens to me, look for the man in the white coat." The handwriting was identical to Aki Tanaka's. The man frowned, turning the pages. They were blank, except for one entry dated May 11th, 2026, the same day Morita's building burned. He said she remembers everything now. The shopkeeper laughed nervously and set it aside. He had no idea that by touching the ink, the cycle had already found its next reader. 2 days later, a young journalism student named Rina Nakamura entered the shop. She was researching cold cases for her university thesis. The diary caught her eye immediately. "Is this real?" she asked. The shopkeeper shrugged. "Came in last week, no idea where from." She bought it for 200 yen, slipped it into her bag, and walked out into the drizzle. That night, Rina began reading. The words came alive under her lamp, bleeding slightly as if freshly written. She felt something stir behind her eyes, a distant memory she couldn't name. A train. Rain. The smell of metal. A man whispering through static. "You've always been here." The next morning, she woke to find 3 slashes drawn on her wrist in faded ink. Meanwhile, across the city, CCTV cameras captured something strange. Brief flashes of faces layered over commuters, a man in a white coat, a teenage girl in a school uniform, a detective in a rain-soaked suit. Frame by frame, they appeared and vanished. Technicians dismissed it as pixel burn, but one analyst noticed that each image carried a hidden watermark, faint coordinates pointing to the same location, Shinjuku Station Platform 3. May 11th approached again, the day Aki vanished. The day every cycle began. At exactly 11:45 p.m., lights flickered across the platform. Passengers froze as the intercom cut out, replaced by a rhythmic ticking echoing through the tunnels. A woman standing near the tracks looked around confused. Her face was pale eyes unfocused. Rina Nakamura. The diary clutched tightly in her hands. The surveillance footage would later show her whispering something, though no audio survived. Her lips formed the words, "I remember." A train entered the station brakes screeching. For 3 seconds, the lights went white. When vision returned, she was gone. The diary lay on the ground, pages fluttering. The footage from that night was never released publicly, but those who viewed it reported something impossible, that in the reflection of the passing train, multiple figures stood beside her. A girl in a 1990s uniform, a detective, a man in a white coat, all looking directly at the camera. The government's digital forensics unit tried to isolate the anomaly. They tracked residual data spikes across Tokyo's network. The same binary pattern repeated: the circle and 3 slashes encoded into traffic lights, advertising screens, even phone signals. It wasn't spreading like a virus. It was rewriting the city's memory. Weeks later, in a dim university lab, a technician analyzing the footage noticed that the interference contained sound hidden in the static. When slowed down, it formed a voice, dozens layered into one. "This is not death. This is recollection." The technician quit the next day. By midsummer, small pockets of people across Japan began reporting identical dreams, rain tunnels, white light, a heartbeat inside static. Psychologists called it the Shinjuku phenomenon. No one connected it to the cold case, not officially, but an anonymous file leaked onto dark web forums titled coldcase_Tokyo 95_final.mp4. The thumbnail showed a white coat folded neatly on a railing. Those who downloaded it claimed the video started normally crime scene footage interviews, old newsreels, but halfway through it changed. The narrator's voice slowed, deepened, and began addressing the viewer directly. "Thank you for remembering." The video crashed. Computers corrupted drives, wiped memories of the last 5 minutes from some users. Eventually, it was deleted from every traceable server. But even after deletion, fragments of the audio were found, embedded inside unrelated files, songs, security feeds, voicemail systems. The pattern couldn't be explained. In early autumn, a power company reported malfunctions in their smart grid electrical surges, forming rhythmic pulses that, when mapped visually, recreated the metronome waveform. Engineers laughed it off as coincidence until one of them began hearing a whisper through the hum of the generators. Tick, tick, tick. He never returned to work. And so the cold case that began in 1995, one missing girl, one lost diary, had become something else entirely, a network of remembering. No bodies, no suspects, just echoes. A system feeding on thought itself. The more people spoke of it, the stronger it became. News outlets stopped covering it. The Ministry of Communications quietly restricted searches related to Tokyo cold case after unexplained server crashes. Yet the story kept resurfacing, in podcasts, in school essays, in documentaries that vanished before airing. Each version slightly different, but always ending with the same phrase: "If something happens to me, look for the man in the white coat." Years later, when the station was renovated, construction workers unearthed a sealed compartment behind the wall of Platform 3. Inside was a cassette recorder, still functional, still running on a corroded battery. The tape inside was labeled simply Cycle 10_final. When they pressed play, only one voice spoke, calm, distant, tired. "Tokyo remembers." The tape ended there. The workers handed it to police, who stored it in evidence. No one listened again. But on the night it was logged, the station's loudspeakers turned on by themselves, broadcasting 3 soft ticks into the empty tunnels. Some passengers still claim to hear them today, late at night, just before the last train, a faint rhythm under the rumble of steel, like the city's pulse sinking to a memory it can't forget. Tick, tick, tick.